I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a great holiday. That is right. I am back at least for this show, and then I will be on break until Thursday. So I'll be back Thursday because we have New Year's Eve coming up, and I do have plans for that. But it's so great to see you guys again. Welcome back. I have missed you. I did upload a couple of videos while I was on break. As you guys know, we didn't have live streams, but I did upload a couple of videos that have actually done pretty well, surprisingly. So it feels good to be back, at least for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. And today is that Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Yeah. And for those who are wondering, those of us at RBN, over on RBN, obviously, we're on break over there as well. So people are spending time with their family for the holidays. I just came back for tonight to do the 2024 year in review show because you guys, voted on the stories and you ranked the stories. So I promised I would do that. So I'm here for that. I want to start out by giving shout outs to people in the chat. So glad to see your faces. Greetings, CBC voter says, happy Sunday, Sabby Sabs. What is up, CBC? Shout out to Crip Hop Nation for becoming a Sabby member. Let's give Crip a big whoop whoop in the house. Bruce says, I'm not really new. The debit card expired. Happy 2025 all. Welcome, Bruce. I saw your new member thing there earlier. Robbie says 5 p.m. That's right. Sundays is 5 p.m. Greetings, Lawrence. Free Palestine. What's up, Lawrence? Shout out to Lee Ball says, I sure we're all mourning Jimmy Carter, age 100, taken too soon. British sarcasm. Yeah, Eric just told me, I didn't know before the stream that apparently Jimmy Carter just died. I know Jimmy Carter was sick for quite some time. And I think he's almost 100 years old or something like that. Like he's been around for a long time. one-term president, and apparently there was a lot of, I guess, disappointment with Jimmy Carter's presidency. I don't know. I wasn't alive, but just the things that I've read about and I've heard from people during that time. So yeah, rest in peace, Jimmy Carter. Edward says, hi, everyone. What's up, Edward? Greeting Blockbuster says, hi. Hi. Shout out to Hannah says, sup. Greetings Bill says, looks like it's going to be a fun one tonight. Yes, it is. Tonight is going to be a fun show. Hopefully tonight, you guys, you see some stories that you might laugh about. Some that may make you get a little teary-eyed. I wonder what people think the number one story is. Again, you guys voted, not me. So that should be really interesting. Greetings, Thon says, hi, fam. I hope everyone have a happy, exciting 2025. Let's break the duopoly. Greetings, Gwendolyn says, happy new year, everyone. What's up, Gwendolyn? Greetings, Kelly said, good rainy early evening. It's kind of rainy here a little bit. Like it was raining a little bit and now it's like foggy and there's that mist. You know that kind of rain where it's just misty and it feels like someone's spitting on you. That's what we have right now. That's what we have. Greetings, Kaimi says, let's go. Shout out to Itale says, hello all. Greetings, Karen says, raining up here in Ontario, Canada too. We usually kind of get your weather patterns. Like I know if it's snowing in Canada, it kind of curves to the right and makes its way to Massachusetts. Greetings, Mark says, Sabby. Hello, Mark. Shout out to Anton says, Jimmy Carter has died. Yes, we heard. Greetings, Ray says, hello. Hello. Is it me you're looking for? Shout out to John says, this is winter in America. Yes, it is. Greetings, R. Jones says, game over. Shout out to John says, what's good, everyone? I don't know. What is good with you, John? Greetings, Smooth says, we need to talk about what that soldier was saying in the audience of the Whitney Cummings stand-up show. I have not seen that, but I have heard about it. Greetings, Gus says, happy Sunday, Sabby. Hello, Gus. Shout out to Robert says, greetings, Earthlings. Greetings, Sunlight sends dancing emojis. Shout out to B2 Tree says, sup. Greetings, Alex says, I predict that half the country will be homeless by 2030. Yeah. So there are two videos that I have coming this week. So look forward to those. One is about Robert Brooks, the prisoner that was just killed in New York. And the other one is about the recent report about the homelessness increase in the United States. So that is sending shockwaves to people, particularly in the US. But I was telling you guys over the past year and a half that the homelessness rate was continuing to increase in 2024 significantly. So I have been warning people about this for quite some time. Shout out to Steve says, hello, everybody. Greetings. AB says, hey, Sabby. Shout out to Sip Sauce says, hey, Sabs. And shout out to Damon. Is it Damon Wolf? Shout out to Damon Wolf says, so this is the Sabby, the Diddy guys and Jimmy talk about cool. That is me. Welcome. Is the t-shirt Luigi? No, this is just Mario. So there's a story behind this. I should explain because you guys know that I haven't, I've been on break. So, all that jazz. But so for New Year's Eve, my friends and I we're going to like a brewery event for New Year's Eve, right? And so that brewery, they actually forgot to take down the website of the New Year's Eve event from last year, and it wasn't dated. So if you were to look on their website right now, it said that like the theme was Super Mario Brothers. And so I was like, base, man, let me go ahead and get my Super Mario Brothers t-shirt and let's do the damn thing. And then only to turn around and to find out that that was incorrect information. So the theme this year is actually 50s prom, which I'm sorry, I'm not going to go out and get that. That's expensive. They want the girls to have the 50 prom dress, the 1950s prom dress, and the guys to have like the 1950s tux. That's expensive. I'm not doing that. I'm just going to show up in regular clothes. But anyway, I still had the Mario shirt. So today's just kind of, like I said, I'm still technically on break, but I said I would come back and do this show. So I was like, I'm just throwing on my Mario t-shirt because I was going to wear the shirt. So go, Mario, go. Go, Mario, go. Yes, FX Trader, I covered that already. The story about the H-1B visa is important for the future of the USA. Yes, I covered that. I posted it as a video. The video for that is actually doing really well. So, yeah. That's what we are doing. Yeah, it's not comfortable. The 50s like prom like dress, because I know like when I was in middle school, we had a sock hop and we had to wear like the 50s style, like, you know, dress and all that kind of stuff. Like they're not as comfortable, but whatever it is, what it is. Wearing regular clothes. That's what I'm going to do. That's my plan. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is the 2024 year in review. I hope you're ready for this. I do have a compilation prepared for you. We are going to start at the bottom and we're going to make our way up to the number one story. So it's going to be interesting to see how these stories were ranked, because like I said, you guys voted for them, not me. So Eric, we actually have to go backwards. So can I go to part 2 of Type VNC? Because we have to start with 15 and then go the opposite way. Thank you. What just happened? Can you fix that for me? Thank you. Because I realized that I think that was I made that mistake when I was doing this. So I'm going to figure out how to. Okay. All right, cool. So we're going to start with 15. Okay. All right, cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So tonight we are discussing, of course, how to do the year in review. I really think it's great that you guys voted on these, that you ranked them, because I don't think it's fair if I rank the stories. Tonight is the top 15 news stories of 2024. As you can see there in the thumbnail, in no particular order, you have Barack Obama, Luigi Mangione, Joe Rogan, Kamala Harris. There is a Palestinian activist, Julian Assange, Diddy. But again, in no particular order, ladies and gentlemen. So just keep that in mind. And that's not all of the stories. For those of you who voted, you probably already know that. So we are going to go ahead and dive right in. First and foremost, let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really appreciate you, fam. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: ultimate, Sabinators. There's also Sabsters. Don't forget about those guys. And there are Sabbies. They're holding down the fort as well. And we also have members. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You can see all of their names listed here, and you can see their names listed across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you guys so much. And I believe I shouted out newbies last time. Yes, I shouted out newbies last time. So it should be good to go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started with the top 15 stories of 2024. So again, for those just joining, the viewers voted on ranking the stories. I didn't rank the news stories, so the ranking that you are going to see is what the viewers gave these stories. So we are going to go ahead and start with number 15, ladies and gentlemen. What is story number 15? Let's go ahead and dive right in. Number 15 is TYT pivots. That is number 15. Let's go ahead and dive in here.
So let's get right into it. Cenk, are you now a Republican?
Okay, so a lot of people on the left have that theory. The definitive answer is no. So look, I've been a populist all along, and what's fascinating to me is how much politics in America has changed, because the left-wing populists, like the Bernie Sanders type of guys, have been standing a post waiting for our right flank to appear at some point. Because giant things like getting money out of politics, you cannot do alone. The left wing can't do it alone. The right wing can't do it alone. The only way to fix it is an amendment, because you got to go above the Supreme Court. You need 3/4 of the states. So for me, I've always thought if we don't get united, we're never going to beat the establishment. And the establishment has been my enemy forever and ever and ever. And I wish we had beaten them, through Bernie in 2016 or 2020. And I'm not saying that they're knocked out. I mean, the establishment is gigantic. They've got billions and trillions of dollars, and they're going to make a huge comeback in the 2028 primaries. But on the Republican side, they've largely been defeated. And so here's what my left-wing friends don't understand. They think you guys are all MAGA, and MAGA means it's a cult, and you're never going to disagree with Trump. You're never going to disagree with each other, and that you are like their father's Republicans, but you're not their father's Republicans. And so our side, I've been trying to get them to realize that Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, all these folks that take the money, they're not on your side. They're on the establishment side, right? And for you guys on the right, when I used to debate you, and I don't mean you guys in specific, I mean in general, all I would get is wall-to-wall talking points. Oh, Mitch McConnell knows what he's doing. Oh, John Cornyn is the best. Oh, George Bush, Dick Cheney, etc. And we've been around forever. We're the longest-running show in internet history, right? We're the first YouTube partner channel ever. That makes me like the original YouTuber, right? Oh, wow.
A lot of people forget this too. It's true that TYT has been around for an incredibly long time, and they are like one of the first YouTube partners. And that's part of the reason why I think a lot of people lost their shit when when Jake Uger decided, you know what, I'm going to try to work alongside with MAGA because we want to get some things done, at least work with them on the things that we agree with. TYT is known as was known as the home of progressives. And I think this is part of the reason why a lot of people just kind of lost it. This was the platform, the largest YouTube platform for progressive candidates, politics, etc. It is TYT. They have over 6 million subscribers. It's just a reality. And everybody else is under that number, or they started with TYT, or they were an affiliate at some point in time. So that's where a lot of the progressive commentators got their start, or they started their own channel, and then at some point they became an affiliate of TYT. So when Jink, started to speak this way on the PBD podcast, a lot of people were like, is he serious? Is this a joke? Is this for real? But yes, apparently it is for real. And as you can tell here, this definitely caused a stir within the progressive community.
And so I battled the Cheneys. I battled all those guys in the Bush years, right? And then I hit Obama from the left, and people got super mad. I mean, that's part of the reason why I had the huge blowout with MSNBC, and I left MSNBC because they didn't want me to hit Obama, and they didn't want me to hit the Democrats. So I've been doing that from day one. And guys, today, I think that, we could do something historic. I think that.
Okay, so I think this was the first place where I saw that announcement from Cenk Uygur, was that he was going to try to work alongside MAGA. That was the first announcement where I heard of it on the PBD podcast. And then I think it went even a little bit further here. As you can see, he has been debating multiple people on the left about this decision. He's had this debate with Mark Lamont Hill, which I made a video about that recently. Check that out. And he also just had this debate with Francesca, who is also a part of TYT. I assume she's still there. But this clip right here really caught my eye. And this is kind of rounding the year out, the 2024 year out, because I think this may be one of the last debates he had before the end of the year. Something that Francesca said here, and a lot of people were like, wow, she really got him here. Listen to this.
Here is him asking you about left media. And I got to say, Cenk, this one sucked real hard for me.
The left has some work to do in developing over-the-top media to be able to bypass the main networks.
Yeah, so we have TYT as a giant network, but we have a lot of great progressive and populist shows that are not part of TYT, that's in the left-wing ecosystem. I don't think that that's the issue. I don't think that there isn't enough shows. I think that there's a couple others. One, on the right, you guys do a great job of coalescing. Okay, so you do a couple of things well. You work together well, and you're more welcoming, if I'm being honest. If you agree with MAGA 5%, the answer you get is welcome, right? Come join us, right? On the left, if you disagree 5%, they go, get out of here, you're a right-winger, you're a fascist.
I watched this whole I watched the whole clip, and it started off, and I was like, this is pretty good. This moment, like, truly a part of me died when I watched this.
Wow, I can't believe that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
Super. Just like shriveled up and died, floated away into the ocean. He asks you about left-wing media and why there isn't more left-wing media, which already, as you were there, you know, in the sort of kingdom of turning points, that's such a dig. Like, why are you guys so weak is effectively what he's saying. And instead of pointing out the way that TPUSA has been bankrolled by Republican mega donors out of Chicago and many other places for years now, and talking about how the Daily Wire was funded by the fracking brothers, the Wilkes brothers. Now they're fishing for new, you know, investors, whatnot, but that there is so much money on the right. He handed this answer to you on a fucking platter, and all you said was, you know what? You guys are really good at being welcoming. People just like you. Cenk, they've got all the money.
I didn't say people just
what are
like
you
me. That's very
talking about? That's effectively what you're good at coalescing. And here's my question to you about so that's just number one on the media, because that just stings because I'm in media. But on the 5%, if you disagree with MAGA 5%, they still welcome you. How did that work out for Liz Cheney?
Ouch. So that was a good question there. You can see the look on Cenk's face there. She has a good point here about the media. It is true, right-wing media does have more money. That's just the reality. You guys can tell the difference if you watch like a left independent show or if you watch a right YouTube show. You can tell the difference by the studio, the background, the setup, the mics that we use, etc. You can tell the difference, right? So she is correct about that. And there is a lot of left YouTube shows. It's just that even when Cenk went on later during this discussion and he went to name them, I noticed he only mentioned the large ones. So there are a lot of left YouTube shows, but they don't have a large subscriber count. And those people are just not spoken about, which I think is ridiculous, but there are more than people realize, right? But that was a good point she brought up here about Liz Cheney, because Liz Cheney voted along with Donald Trump. I think it was like 90s or 90-something% of the time. But the one part when she disagreed, which was the January 6th thing, that was like, nah, you're out or whatever. But I thought that was a good example. This is funny.
Yeah. So look, is there a part of MAGA that'll push you out? Of course. That's what we know MAGA for.
When do they push you out, Cenk? When do they push you out?
Largely when you disagree with Trump.
Exactly.
So listen,
this is the thing that it's the unspoken thing that you're never saying, that ultimately it's all hunky-dory. Elon can tweet back at you. Vivek can listen to you. But if you defy Donald Trump, the God Emperor, you're kicked out of the castle. And no one's defending Liz Cheney. Screw both their castle and the other castle. But Liz Cheney voted with Donald Trump 98% of the time. And just the 1% when she was like, hey, you know what? You can't do a coup on this country. And Adam Kissinger, and they were gone. So miss me with this 5% BS, yo.
It's interesting, too, because to go along with that, we can also say that as much criticism that people have for the way that Liz Cheney voted when she was still in office, at the end of the day, a lot of people were willing to go along with Liz Cheney being a part of Kamala Harris's campaign. So there's that too. But number 15, TYT doing the pivot there, ladies and gentlemen, which apparently upset a lot of people. We are making our way to number 14. What is number 14? Let's bring it in. Again, you guys voted, not me. Number 14 is Joe Rogan endorses Donald Trump.
Carly, just before Election Day, former President Trump landing a major endorsement from Joe Rogan, the podcast host, writing on X, quote, the great and powerful Elon Musk. He makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you'll hear, and I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement of Trump, end quote. Trump also earning the support of the son of baseball legend Roberto Clemente, who spoke at his rally last night. Listen.
My father, the name Clemente, what it means is goodwill and unity. I believe that your team is going to bring it all home. I believe in everything that you stand for right now, being able to make the change for our families. And I told this man that I commit myself to helping RFK Jr. with our kids and making America healthy again.
David Webb is a Fox News contributor. David joins me now. Look, endorsements are nice. I don't know how many people say, person X said they're going to vote for candidate Y, so I am as well. But it's different if they turn out the vote. With regard to Joe Rogan's endorsement of Trump, will that turn out the young males that everybody says Donald Trump needs to win in order to take this election?
More likely than, say, an Oprah endorsement or a celebrity from Hollywood. Here's why. On a daily basis, or let's call it whatever time people listen to Joe Rogan, they get 3 hours of Joe Rogan. So radio hosts, right? I do 3 hours a day. He does his 3 hour long show. People bond with you. They trust you on a variety of issues. They tend to take your word more than they do from somebody who comes in on their private plane, stands up there and lectures you with falsehoods and lies. The contrast isn't more clear. It's about the messenger and actually their base that trusts them. Joe Rogan talks about baseball, if he talks about UFC, if he talks whatever it is, people say, okay, I got to listen to Joe Rogan. That's a big difference. They don't wake up and go, let me hear what Oprah has to say today.
And if he gets those young males, especially in Pennsylvania, out, that could be huge.
And apparently that was huge. So again, that was number 14, which is Joe Rogan endorses Donald Trump. And this one is another story, another story that I think shocked a lot of people, because in 2020 presidential election, Joe Rogan endorsed Bernie Sanders. Let's go back and revisit that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going back in time.
All right, so on his recent podcast, Joe Rogan responded to what I've dubbed the dumbest controversy ever in this election cycle around his, I don't even want to call it an endorsement of Bernie Sanders.
Said he'll probably
vote for him.
And that he loves Tulsi and that he loves Andrew Yang because Joe is an anti-establishment guy and generally socially progressive. It really did make me sad because one of the things that Joe said was that he's probably done with politics, that after this, that he doesn't really want anything to do with it, and that the real issue he has is that his podcast, where he just gets to screw around with his friends and comics, has become so big that it can actually influence elections. And it just demonstrates.
Well, that definitely changed, didn't it? And that definitely changed because he changed his mind. He changed his mind in 2024.
Which is true.
Which, A, is true, but it's so terrible that you can't engage in an honest political discussion in this country without being viciously attacked by the New York Times, the Washington Post, the entire mainstream media, and be, created into a political football, taking your comments completely out of context and smearing you in the most disgusting language. MoveOn.org and the Human Rights Campaign, all of these people just, went after Joe Rogan in a disgraceful way. And it just shows you how some of the best voices in this country, they don't want to touch politics for this reason, is that it's nasty. Yep. And most people don't have the ability to stand up. And I mean, Joe has a bigger platform than the entire mainstream media.
Right.
And even he's like, I don't need this.
I don't need this. And he doesn't. I don't blame him one bit. Right. I mean, it was funny, and he talked about this too. It was ironic that in the comments he was making about why he likes Sanders, he was saying, look, anybody, if you take their comments out of context over, their lifetime, you can smear them as this or as that. And with Sanders, there's very little. It's very hard to do. There's very little of that. And so then in this controversy, what did people disingenuously turn around and do? Take his comments out of context and use it to say he's racist, he's a transphobe, he's a sexist, et cetera, et cetera. It's also this, it's just.
We have to pause here because that's the same thing that's happening right now. So I wanted to go back and revisit Joe Rogan's endorsement for Bernie Sanders in 2020 because people are making that same criticism towards Joe Rogan now. Now, again, I never considered Joe Rogan's show to be a political podcast or a political news show. He interviews a lot of celebrities, UFC guys, comedians, athletes, etc. So I never took it to be that way. And Joe Rogan, himself has also said that he is not a political expert and does not consider himself to be. He said, I'm just a guy sitting in a chair, having a conversation with someone for 3 hours. So that's something that I always, kept in mind. But it was after he gave that endorsement there for Bernie Sanders, he got a lot of blowback from people. People were saying oh no, Bernie Sanders is getting this endorsement from Joe Rogan. This is really bad. I remember AOC wasn't fond of that endorsement at that point in time. And now Joe Rogan made himself the center of controversy once again because he endorsed Donald Trump, and he got a lot of criticism mainly from people on the left about endorsing Donald Trump. So it looks like Joe did this twice in a row, and he was heavily criticized.
Such a part of a broader culture. Any of you who are online have, I'm sure, experienced the same phenomenon where you take one thing out of context or, interpret it a nasty way and then use it to say you as a person are toxic or you are problematic or you are racist or you are sexist. And anyone, first of all, comics, it's their job to push the limits, right? Every comic, it's worth their salt.
That's how you laugh.
Is going to push the limit and sometimes go a little too far. That's part of the job. So there's that to start with. But then to take that and then use it to smear a candidate who's like loosely associated with that person, the whole thing is just completely insane. So I don't blame him one bit for saying, I don't need this. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm kind of sad to hear it though.
It's a very low.
I love his take on politics.
Exactly. It's a very low point for culture, but I do think it's ascendant because overall what's going to happen is Joe might bow out, but the rest of us are going to say, you know what, screw this. And we're going to continue to speak out. I think that explains the rise of this show. So many other different voices is that we're willing to fight back whenever people attack and smear and take things out of context, because the truth is we don't need them anymore.
It's the coalition of the canceled.
It is.
We're like,
yeah.
well,
Go ahead. Screw it.
We'll all be canceled together.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. You want to cancel me? Fine.
Yeah,
do it.
fine.
And looks like Joe got canceled again this time around. So maybe Joe's decision after 2020 endorsement of Bernie Sanders, maybe he should have stuck with that decision and said, you know what? I am going to stay out of politics. I don't want anything to do with this. It's crazy over here. It's hot in these streets, so maybe that would have been a good idea for him to stick with what he was deciding to do because, of course, now after the endorsement of Donald Trump, he's also received a lot of criticism once again. So I don't know. We'll see. But that was number 14, which is Joe Rogan endorses Donald Trump. Aye, ladies and gentlemen. We are making our way to number 13. That's right. If you're just joining, you got to know the viewers decided to vote on the top news stories of 2024, and they rank these stories, not I. So we are going through the numbers. We're going back just a little bit of, memory lane. That's all. Not too far down memory lane, but we're going back there. Let's go to some of the comments and then we'll go ahead and get to the next story here. Thank you for the super chat. Sip Sauce says, love the shirt, Sabs. Thank you. Mario. Thank you. Sparky says, hey, Sabby. Thank you, John. Just curious, Star Wars or Star Trek? Star Wars. I've always been Star Wars first, Star Trek second, but I kind of grew up on Star Wars as a kid, so it's a little bit different. I got into Star Trek a little bit later. Thank you, Jasmine. Super Mario. Robbie says, haven't seen Nick in a long time. Nick is on break. He's on holiday break. I think he's coming back 2025 in the new year. Thank you, Jay. Hi, Sabby. Hope you had a great Christmas with the family. I did, and I hope you did too. Greetings, Jasmine says, liberals love joining the right they claim to hate so much, but God forbid leftists march with conservatives for a better quality of life. It's treachery when we do it. Oh, you must be talking about the marches for Medicare for all. How could I forget, Jasmine? Lauren says, Francesca ate Jink up. Cynical says Jimmy Carter died. Yes, we mentioned that at the beginning of the show. It's crazy, right? Thank you, Focus. Thomas Massey stands up to Trump and Israel, and he is still a part of the movement. Liz Cheney is a bad example to use. She is Bush, not Mac. She is Bush. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to number 13. Obama blames black men. Oh, yes. How can we forget?
I'm going to go ahead and just speak some truths, if you don't mind. Yes. Because my understanding, based on reports I'm getting from campaigns and communities, is that we have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
Oh, that was the statement heard around the world. Barack Obama said the problem seems to be with the brothers. It's the black men that are not coming out to support Kamala Harris. And oh God, this did not help Kamala's campaign, and it definitely didn't help Barack Obama's reputation.
So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly and say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences, who's had to work harder and do more and overcome and achieves the second highest office in the land and is putting forward concrete proposals to directly address the things that are vital in our neighborhoods and our communities, from housing to making sure that our mothers and our fathers and our grandparents can afford medicine, and making sure that we are dealing with prices that are too high and rents that are too high, and are committed to making sure that we maintain the Affordable Care Act, so everybody's got help here, and cares about things like education and entrepreneurship in our neighborhoods. And that's on one side. And on the other side, you have someone who has consistently shown disregard, not just for the communities, but for you as a person. And you're thinking about sitting down?
So I think we all know how that went for Barack Obama, right? And it did not go well for him. And as we said before, we said it back then, I'll say it again. The problem is with that part of that statement that he made there is that Kamala Harris didn't grow up like a lot of black people in the United States. So she really did not have a similar experience that like someone like my family had, or someone like, JB's family, et cetera. She really did not grow up the way that a lot of us did. So it's very oh God, Obama, that really did not help his reputation. JB's in the chat and he said, Barry done effed up when he did this BS. I, as a black man, was insulted by him. I'm glad the glimmer from Saint Obama is gone and we can openly criticize him in the black community now. It was forbidden. Right. And we have to remember people like, Dr. Cornel West, who did criticize Obama when it was not popular to do so. He took a lot of heat for that. Same thing with Tavis Smiley. Like Tavis Smiley was blacklisted in some of these media spaces because he did criticize Obama not helping the black community. So we got to remember it's a little bit more easier to criticize him now, but that was not always the case. In fact, after that statement from Barack Obama, it did make headlines, and some of those places it landed on CNN, where even here they criticized what he said. Listen to this.
Is Obama in the wrong here with how he's talking about black men in particular and singling them out in this way?
Yeah, let's start from here. He is still the greatest living retail politician. He's objectively a top 15 president, but even he can swing and miss sometimes. And here he swung and missed. Here's what he did. Harris has been very strategic about when and how she's spoken about gender and race. And he stepped on that. And when she hasn't spoken about it, he stepped on that message. And I think also with those comments, and there's more to this, but let me just start with this, is that he forgets, at least in that moment, that she doesn't get the benefit of being a historic first the way he did. She's a historic first woman if she wins.
Maybe that's part of the problem, that's what he's saying.
And
Why doesn't she get the benefit?
Well, first of all,
well, you can't point fingers at black men and blame them for not. First of all, the election hadn't even happened yet. But you can't just point fingers and blame the voters. That is one of the biggest mistakes that you can do if you're trying to get turnout.
Well, we have to remember that this is a thing. Like Barack Obama has a history of kind of chastising specifically black men. And like the question is whether what he said is relevant, right? Because there are a few black men, like there are a few white men who are more conservative than black women, and more white men are conservative than white women. But the point is, does this work, right? And there's no evidence that it's true or that it works. And he doesn't do that with, like, you've never heard him say, why don't you white women stop being racist and vote for me or Kamala Harris, or they don't talk to Hispanic voters or LGBTQ voters. It's only specifically black men that he takes this tact that doesn't work.
Why do you think that is?
Because you know why.
No,
because
tell me.
The second most loyal, the most progressive group of men on the planet, they don't care about. They assume that they have their vote and they don't have to do anything for it. And the point of this is that if you don't vote for Kamala Harris and you're a black man, something must be wrong with you. That is the subtext of everything that they're saying.
Well, this is what I would say to this, because I was there when the NABJ interviewed Kamala Harris in Philadelphia. And what Kamala Harris said then was that you asked that question with the assumption that black men are in somebody's pocket. You can't make that assumption. Black men are just like any other group. They have their interests, and I'm working to get their vote. I don't expect to get it because I am black. I am working to get their vote. And that is what she said. And so I think we have to focus on what she said about black men. And I think we also have to focus on the fact that most black men are going to vote for Kamala Harris anyway. That is the reality. But I think that in talking to black people every day, which I do as a radio host, I've heard some black men say, I'm not voting for her because she is a woman. I have heard that. And I think that is reprehensible. I got to be honest.
So of course they had to add that in there. I showed you guys the exit poll numbers, right? So Hillary Clinton received a larger support from black male voters than Kamala Harris did. So of course they're going to bring on the guest that's going to say that. Like I said, are there some men that may have said, I don't want to vote for, or I don't want a woman president? Absolutely. But that was not the majority. And I think that's the part that you really got to drive home. That was number 13. Obama blames black men. And I'm sorry to take you back down the road to that story, because I think I remember how frustrated everyone was at that point in time. So we can move ahead. we can move ahead, ladies and gentlemen. We are now going to number 12. Diddy arrested. That's right. If you're just joining in, again, the viewers voted, not me. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen? It was like the shock heard around the world, but apparently not to some of the music industry. Number 12 is Diddy arrested.
Breaking news tonight. Sean Diddy Combs has been arrested in a Manhattan hotel this evening after a grand jury indicted the music mogul. His attorney tells CNN that he is currently being processed. The charges are unclear as of this moment. Joining us now is CNN's entertainment reporter Elizabeth Wagmeister, and also with us CNN chief legal correspondent Ellie Honig. Elizabeth, you were a big part of revealing some details about Diddy's conduct in private over the course of the last couple of months. That video led to a lot more scrutiny on what he has been accused of. What do we know at this point about what this case might ultimately be about?
Abby, at the moment, we don't know what the charges are. I have information that he was arrested tonight at a Manhattan hotel. He is currently being processed. I heard from his attorney, they are still maintaining his innocence. They said that in anticipation of these charges that Diddy relocated to New York last week. And here's a statement that I have from his attorney. He says, "We are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution of Mr. Combs by the U.S. Attorney's Office." He goes on to say that he is an imperfect person, but is not criminal. Now, Abby, that video that you just spoke about was a few months ago when our team broke this disturbing video of Diddy violently assaulting his ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, better known
as Cassie. And we're not going to show that video because, again, that video can be hard to watch for anyone that has gone through any type of domestic abuse. But the Diddy arrest story, what I told people again at that point in time is that, remember, Diddy is not the head of the snake, right? So Diddy is just maybe a part of this, but he's not the head of the snake. And notice that they usually don't go after the head of the snake. I even said, even with Jeffrey Epstein, he's probably not the head of the snake, right? So they'll go after the body, but they'll leave the head in place. And here we are, December 2024, and Diddy has not been released on bail. He was denied bail. He is still in jail at this point in time. And I don't think when this story was reported, I don't think a lot of people envisioned that he would still be in jail at this point. I think a lot of people thought, okay, well, they're going to set a bail and then he's going to get out on bail and then there will be a trial. But they denied that for him. So we have seen a lot happen, in particular with the trafficking cases. It wasn't just Diddy. Remember, the owner of Abercrombie and Fitch, I talked about him as well, was also arrested for trafficking. He was trafficking the models that were working for Abercrombie and Fitch, but they gave him bail. And so he got out of jail on bail, but they would not give bail to Diddy. So that's something to keep in mind there. But I really don't think at that time when this story was reported, I really don't think that most people thought he would still be there right now. I think a lot of people thought that he would get out on bail. And since this story, other people's names have been brought forward to the spotlight, right? Like we have seen interviews of people blaming people like, again, allegedly Jay-Z. They have been mentioning names like Tom Hanks, Leonardo DiCaprio, like all these people that frequented like those Diddy parties. They were throwing their names in. Now, we don't have any proof or evidence or whatever about all these other celebrities that have been listed. But ever since Diddy was arrested, there was an alarm of fear in Hollywood among those that went to those Diddy parties.
10 civil suits against Diddy, 9 of which he is accused directly of sexually assault. Up until that video, he denied everything. After that video came out, he changed his tone. He apologized for his conduct in that video. But I have to tell you, Abby, just as of last week, a former member of Danity Kane, which was one of the bands from Making the Band, Diddy's show that was on MTV, she sued him for sexual assault and other disturbing allegations, and he denied that. So he continues the denials, and he still maintains his innocence, even though he has been arrested tonight.
And Ellie, not a huge amount of information available tonight, but Elizabeth brought up something that I want you to give us a little bit of insight into. Diddy is here in New York, in Manhattan. He apparently came here in anticipation that something like this might happen. What should we understand about what that might mean? It could very well be that this is a federal arrest being processed here in New York.
So, Abby, there are some important things we do not know, including the specific charges that have been lodged against Sean Combs. But there are some really important things we do know. First of all, based on the attorney's statement, based on our reporting, this is a federal prosecution. It's not a state prosecution. The fact that he's being processed in Manhattan tells me that's the Southern District of New York. That's consistent with the reporting that the Southern District of New York had been handling this case. That's the office I used to work at. That's an office that sort of specializes in high stakes cases. Just in the last year or so, Southern District of New York, just as an example, has successfully prosecuted Sam Bankman-Fried, Senator Robert Menendez. The other thing that we do know is a grand jury has indicted Sean Combs, meaning they found probable cause that he committed at least one federal crime. Now, as to what happens next, there will be, likely tomorrow or within the next couple of days, but usually in the SDNY, you try to do it the next day, there will be an arraignment, meaning Sean Combs will appear in court with his lawyers. There are no cameras in federal court. He will be advised of the charges against him, and he will almost certainly enter a not guilty plea. But the key thing to watch for is then we'll have the question of bail. Will prosecutors agree to let him out on bail? Will prosecutors ask the judge to lock him up pending trial? That could end up in a contentious argument. So these are things that...
And we'll go ahead and stop it there. But obviously, we already know the answer to that question. No, they did not allow him to have bail. So that's the answer to that question. That was number 12. Diddy is arrested, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you very much. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Thank you, guys. We'll go to a couple comments and then we'll get to the next story here. Javier says, Occupy Wall Street, Flint locking up whistleblowers, thanks Obama. Yeah, he did shut down Occupy Wall Street. That honestly was a good movement, and it could have grown even more had he not intervened. No one, nobody. Looking forward to the Diddy trials. JB said, I feel like more Black people were divided on the Cosby issue because they thought the system was just trying to take a Black man down. Now that it's diddler do wrong, they don't really feel conflicted. Yeah. Well, Bill Cosby too. Like, so like Bill Cosby is, I don't know how to explain it, but Bill Cosby was known as like America's TV dad for like years. So that one I think was very hard for people to be convinced of, so it's like Bill Cosby versus Diddy. And we've seen Diddy, kind of behave in some ways, right? So yeah, the Diddy one, that was another big one you guys voted for this year. We are moving on, ladies and gentlemen, to, I believe we are at number 11. Number 11 is Jill Stein wins the Muslim vote. And why did that happen? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it happened because of Gaza. I'll take you to this ad here where she reached out strongly about the genocide, and then we'll get into what happened with that CARE exit poll.
We have fascism right here and now in the form of the Biden-Harris administration, who are conducting a genocide. There's no greater sign of fascism than genocide. The Democrats are not the solution. They are part of the problem. The American public is with us. The world is with us. And the eyes of the world are watching. And they want to shut down this genocide. They want to end the flow of weapons. They want to end the assault on Lebanon.
The coming Kamala Harris administration, the current Biden administration, they're sending a clear message that genocide is okay.
The world is in agreement on this. The only ones who are not in agreement is our criminal warmongering leadership, who should be in The Hague. They should not be walking the streets of America as the war criminals that they are, responsible for 200,000 murders and 2 million people who are being tortured.
Oh, I don't know what happened here. YouTube
in Gaza.
I support Jill Stein because she's the first presidential candidate that I feel like shares the voice of the Middle Eastern people. We do make up a large portion of this country.
Okay, I don't know what's happening with YouTube here. Let me just go forward.
Do make up a large portion of this country, but unfortunately it's as if our
Sorry, guys.
respects who we are.
We have the power to shut this down, to end empire, to end the squandering of our precious tax dollars, which are being spent on endless war after endless war.
For the first time, as Middle Easterners, we feel like our voices are heard from a presidential candidate. Thank you so much.
So awesome. Forget the lesser evil. Fight for the greater good. We have that right here and now in our campaign.
It's very clear that the two-party system is corrupt. Both sides have become a genocidal oligarchy, and
this genocide in Gaza now.
Yeah, sorry for the skipping there of the video. I don't know what was going on there. But this was obviously one of the biggest issues of this presidential election was the genocide in Gaza. And Jill Stein did a very great job of not just addressing it, but talking about what the next steps need to be. And part of that is ending the occupation, which a lot of people didn't really want to get into because it can make people uncomfortable. And it can make some organizations uncomfortable that are contributing to some of these campaigns. And I want to go back to this video clip here where they were sounding the alarm. Jill Stein is doing well with Muslim voters in states like Michigan. Check this out.
A poll surveying Muslim voters in Michigan found that many are moving away from Vice President Kamala Harris and supporting Green Party nominee Jill Stein this November. The poll conducted by the Council on American Islamic Relations showed Stein had 40% support of Muslim voters in Michigan, Donald Trump had 18% support, and Harris had 12%.
And you see, this is why, remember when AOC was attacking Jill Stein? This is why. Because, see, they had already seen these numbers. This is what I was trying to tell people what Butch Ware was sounding the alarm about. They had already seen the internal polls. So they knew that Kamala Harris didn't have a chance unless she was able to capture, again, the Muslim vote in Michigan. And she was at the bottom. Like, it was Jill Stein is first, Donald Trump was second, and Kamala Harris was at the bottom there. And that was just Michigan. So they knew that's why AOC and Keith Ellison and everybody else, they were sent out as attack dogs to attack Jill Stein, because they saw that before, when Biden was in this race, Biden was at the top with the Muslim voters. And then obviously the genocide did have that effect. Make no mistake, though, if Kamala Harris wasn't in this race and if Joe Biden would have stayed in this race, he would have been at the bottom, too.
The poll also found Stein was leading Harris among Muslim voters in Arizona and Wisconsin, key battleground states. A Reuters report stated the uncommitted national movement said it would not back Harris even though it opposes Trump and won't recommend a third-party vote. It said Trump would accelerate the killing in Gaza if reelected, but Harris would not respond to its request she meet with Palestinian Americans who lost loved ones in Gaza and had not agreed to discuss halting arms shipments to Israel. The Muslim vote in these states could be crucial this November. Consider this: the uncommitted movement, which encouraged voters frustrated by the Biden administration's Israel policy to vote uncommitted in the Democratic primary, garnered 750,000 votes. That could impact states that have been decided by less than 1% during recent presidential elections. Michigan was decided by 11,000 votes in 2016, Georgia decided by 11,000 votes in 2020, Wisconsin was decided by 27,000 votes in 2016.
Yeah, so that was, this was a big one. You got to admit it. The genocide was obviously a big issue. And there were a number of supporters that said if Kamala Harris would have just agreed to the ceasefire and the arms embargo, that they would switch their vote to her. Obviously, that did not happen. And I think we all know why. If we look at the donors, we can answer that question for ourselves. And then the election happened. And something happened that I've never seen in my adult life with a third party candidate. And that was that they were able to win the Muslim vote. So Jill Stein did do something. This is a win for the Green Party, which people, some people are like, well, she didn't win, but we told you, like, the goal was to try to get to 5%. I never told you that she would definitely win. You know what I mean? So I'm realistic about what it takes for a third party to succeed in a presidential election in this country in particular. But this exit poll came out, and I think that this said something. It said the CARE 2024 American Muslim Voter National Presidential Exit Poll. Which presidential candidate did you vote for? Jill Stein was at the top with 53.2%. Donald Trump was second with 21.4%. Kamala was third with 20.3%. Dr. West, fourth with 1.4%. Chase, 0.2%. And voted for other candidates was 3.6%. That could have been a mixture of RFK and Claudia de la Cruz therefore voted for other candidates. But this is one thing I did say, I think the Green Party should pat themselves on the back for that. The fact that she did win the Muslim vote. And I didn't see that happen with Ralph Nader. I didn't see it happen with Howie Hawkins, any other third party candidate in my adult life. If it happened before me, let me know. But that did send an alarm. And that says something about the Democratic Party, because those voters, some of the Muslim voters, told me to my face that they have no plans to go back to the Democratic Party. So this, in a way, could effectively shape what could be a third party movement in this country. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But the fact that she won the Muslim vote, when's the last time a third party candidate won a particular demographic? So I think that did, send some type of message to the Democratic Party, whether or not they're going to move in a direction that would ultimately benefit the Muslim people, Palestinian Americans, and Gaza. I significantly doubt it, as long as AIPAC is funding these politicians and as long as they have a hold on the duopoly. I doubt that, but it could be a pathway to really getting a strong third party movement in this country. So I always ask people to look forward to what could come in the future. Right? It's not easy and it's not going to be easy. And I'm not here to tell you it'll be easy, but I tell people to look forward that what could be. So think about that. Number 10, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy. I remember this one was a shock for many of us. A little bit of foreign policy here. We are bringing in the 10th story. Iran's president dies in a helicopter crash. Does everybody remember this one? This was a big one.
We start with breaking news from Iran, where state media says that President Raisi and the Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian died when their helicopter crashed on Sunday. The wreckage has been located and there are no survivors among those who were on board. The search took place in a mountainous area in northwestern Iran near Tabriz. Mr. Raisi was returning from a visit to Azerbaijan, where he'd been discussing cooperation over dams and water supplies. The helicopter had been one of 3 flying together. This is it taking off to return to Iran. The other 2 reached their destination safely, but the alarm was raised on Sunday when Iran's interior minister said the president's aircraft had experienced a hard landing and communication had been lost. Several countries offered to help in the search, which was hampered by bad weather, as you can see from these pictures issued by the Azerbaijan Red Crescent Society.
I did speak to Professor Morandi about this after this happened, because I think a lot of us were suspicious. We're like, really? There were 2 helicopters that flew from Iran, and it just happens that the one helicopter that was carrying the president of Iran was the one that crashed. But Professor Morandi came onto the show and he explained to me, he said, I understand why people would think that, but he said, but there was no foul play. He said the conditions were really bad. As you can see here in this video, look at how bad the conditions were. They were also in the mountains, from what I understand. So probably was not a great time to fly, but they decided to proceed with that.
Overnight, Turkey launched a drone to search for the missing helicopter. This map tracks its progress. You can see where it concentrated its search. In the early hours of the morning, Turkey said it had identified a source of heat, which it suspected to be the wreckage of a helicopter carrying Iran's President Raisi. It said it had shared the coordinates with the Iranian teams. Then these pictures emerged a short while ago. These are pictures taken by a drone of the crash scene. You can just see on the laptop screen the wreckage of the helicopter.
Yeah, there was no coming out of that, guys. There was none whatsoever, because you can see there's the tail of the helicopter there. So there was no way that he was going to make it out of that.
Well, with me now is Parham Gabadi from BBC Persian. Hi, Parham, good to see you. And this accident, this crash happened last night in Iran, and since then there was speculation about whether or not there would be any survivors, and confirmation in the last couple of hours that the president and foreign minister have been killed. What are the authorities in Iran saying?
So the authorities announced that they found, as you said, they first found the wreckage, and they immediately said that there is no sign of life around this wreckage, and they said that they've got only less than 2 kilometers to reach this helicopter, and they were going to make it there within a few hours. But the efforts to find this helicopter took all the night. As you said, it was hampered by the bad weather. First it was foggy. That is believed to be the reason for the crash, and then it turned into rainy weather, and over the night the temperature fell and it started snowing. But Iranian Red Crescent was not able to find the president, so they asked help from the Turkish and the Russians. Apparently the Turkish drones played a really key role in finding the wreckage of the helicopter overnight and trying to detect where it has fallen.
So tell us about who the president was, what his role is in Iran, and what his death will mean for the country.
Yeah, and President Raisi was very much beloved in Iran, despite what a lot of corporate media will tell you. You're going to see that when I show you his funeral procession.
President Ibrahim Raisi was a totally different president compared to his predecessors because, for example, Rouhani was, they all had their disagreements with the Iranian supreme leader, who's at the helm of the politics in Iran. He holds most of the power. Ibrahim Raisi was considered to be his protege. He was a yes man. He did not had any disagreements with the Iranian president. So, and his presidency is one of the most short-lived presidencies. He did not even make it to the third year. And he started he came to power when he was just an 18-year-old in the judiciary system that later on became known as a kind of committee of death because they issued a lot of death sentences back in the 80s to many Iranian dissidents. And that's why many human rights organizations, when he came into 2022, when he became a president, many human rights organizations, including Amnesty International, asked for investigations for him about crimes against humanity. So, and then he became the custodian of Imam Reza's shrine in Mashhad. The importance of that is where the money and the power is. So he reached the source of money and power at the very young age. And then he became the president a few years ago. But like I said, he was considered to be the protege of Ayatollah Khomeini, a person who listens to him, who obeys the orders, and who does not disagree with the commander-in-chief.
Yeah. So number 10, Iran's president dies in the helicopter crash. And I do want to debunk some of the ridiculousness from corporate media where they tried to make it seem like people didn't like him, they despised him. You can obviously see that that's not true when you look at his funeral procession here. Look at all the people. So a lot of people for someone that people apparently did like, right? Yeah, this is why sometimes you got to seek out this information for yourself. But that was number 10, which is that Iran's president dies in the helicopter crash. Let's go ahead and go to some of the comments here. Mouse says, love the Mario shirt, Sabs. Thank you. I'm just kind of chilling today. I know people are probably like, whoa, Sabby's just wearing a t-shirt. Yes. I just kind of snuck back in from break to do the end of the year review. Thank you, Kira. Any plans for a panel on the ADOS FBA discourse? Yes, I've done this before. I just had one recent. Actually, maybe that's not considered the same thing. I've done this before in the past. I do plan to do another one 2025. So yes, definitely. JB says, as someone who worked in the campaign, Dr. Jill Stein was the same behind the scenes as she was in front of people. She was authentic. Yeah, and I actually went to a rally that Jill Stein was speaking at. This is way before I ever interviewed Jill Stein on my show. So this was a couple years ago, and it was an Earth Day rally, and she gave a speech there, a phenomenal speech. And she was just so chill, like not like what you would expect a presidential candidate to be, right? She was just very chill. R. Wilbox says, why would they have taken the risk? Sometimes people do it. I go back to the death of Aaliyah and I ask the same question. Why did they fly that plane? Knowing that they had way too much luggage for the small plane. They were already warned that that is going to weigh the plane down. Why take the risk? I ask that too, but sometimes people think that they can do it. I don't know. Ask a pilot. Maybe we should get shirts to say, ask a pilot, and ask them, like, why do they feel like they can take that risk sometimes? Let's go to the comment on Rockfin. Thank you. All right. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin hemp card. Biggest story of the century, BBC said Pfizer was using orphaned and force-taken African-American children in remember this, in the Bronx for AIDS experiments, for stomach tubes for those who resisted. Drugs that make you crawl in your skin, mass graves memorial at the church. Saddam killed his own people. Hitler did X-ray experiments on kids. How's this different? Interesting. Thank you so much for that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going on to the next story here. And yes, We are at number 9. Number 9, ladies and gentlemen, is, again, you voted for it. You guys ranked these. Kamala Harris loses the 2024 presidential race. I actually thought that this one would be ranked higher, so I was surprised that this one was number 9. But here we go. Let's take a look back, folks, and let's see what could have made it go this way.
Everywhere I go, I tell people, look, you may not be a union member. You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time. Because what we know is when union wages go up, everybody's wages go up.
Well, she was right about the union wages, but I think what a lot of people took from this was the dialect, the way that she changed her tone, the way she was like, you better thank the gospel cadence. You better thank a union member. You better thank a union member for paid leave, sick leave. And those of us that grew up in the Black church, we know. So that's what it kind of sounded like for people. And people are like, why is she changing the way that she speaks? Is because she's in, Detroit, whatever, that type of thing. So it was mocked, I think, heavily. But that isn't the worst of it, right? I think we all know. I don't think that is what caused Kamala Harris to lose the election. But part of it could be due to this. How can we forget, ladies and gentlemen?
He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis. And he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, that was definitely a memeable moment there for Kamala Harris, and that did not go over well. You cannot say those types of things. That was the Palestinian, pro-Palestinian protester asking, what about Gaza? What about Gaza? Obviously, there's a genocide going on. People are going to want to hear what is your plan when it comes to Israel and Gaza, etc. So you have to understand the frustration and the outrage at that point. People have been protesting for almost a year, and people did protest even over a year. So we have to keep that in mind. And that response from Kamala Harris was not the way to go down. That did not work well at all. Falcon Eye said she pissed me off when she did that. Yeah, it really rubbed people the wrong way. Even some who were still holding out hope for her that she would be better than Joe Biden on that issue and that she would embrace the demands of the protesters. That part right there, that moment, really ticked off some of them and said, you know what, that's it. I'm not going to give her a chance. And then that brings us into the night of the election. We have to go back and remember how the commentators started to change their tone as things started not to move in Kamala Harris's favor. How can we forget this, ladies and gentlemen?
Been saying for weeks, says Ms. O'Malley Dillon, quote, that this race might not be called tonight. Those of you who were around in 2020 know this well. It takes time for all the votes to be counted. All the votes will be counted. That is how our system works. What we do know is this race is not going to come into focus until the early morning hours. As part of the objective of this email is to say to the people on the team, hang in there, guys. Like, it's not over. We're still getting votes in. We still need to keep talking to people, keep people in lines, tell your grandma it's going to be okay. That's part of the objective of an email like that.
So we all know when you start to hear them make those types of comments, hang in there, guys, it's going to be okay. That usually means it's not going to be okay. Right? They're trying to reassure you that there may be still hope, but that usually means it is not going to go in your favor.
Hazleton is. That's a majority, almost 70% Hispanic city. We now have all the vote in Luzerne County. Donald Trump is going to win this by a little bit more than 21 points. Compare this to 4 years ago, it was 14. theme, but it's important. Trump's gains with Hispanic voters. You're absolutely seeing it here in Luzerne County. He's going to win this by more than 20 votes. That's a significant jump for him. His campaign said he was going to do that. They did do that here. We also saw him make those gains in Lackawanna County right next door earlier tonight.
NBC News now projects that in the battleground state of Georgia in the presidential race, Donald Trump has prevailed. That puts the electoral map at Donald Trump with 246 electoral votes.
I think most of us that were watching after he won Georgia, we knew that it was already over. I think most of us, I covered that live. Some people were saying, well, she can still get those 3 states in the blue wall, 3 states. And I told you guys, I was like, I don't think that's going to happen. And the key determining factor of that for me was Philadelphia. That was a city I was watching kind of closely. I covered it before on the show. And I said the fact that she's performing poorly in Philadelphia means she's probably not going to win Pennsylvania. Some people say that that means she should have chosen Shapiro. I don't think that still would have mattered. I still think that she would have lost. The biggest problem that Kamala Harris had is that a lot of the black voters did not come out for her in Pennsylvania the way that they did for Joe Biden. Plus, Joe Biden is also from Pennsylvania, so he had a little bit of extra edge there. But the way the commentators started to melt down was very, very telling.
And Kamala Harris at 189 electoral votes. And this is a big one. The Republican Party will control the United States Senate. Live from Howard University in Washington, D.C.
This is it, guys. Just got to mute for a second because I forgot about that part. But yeah, this is when they were like, uh-oh.
Votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted.
That also means it's over, by the way. That also means it's over. We heard this during Hillary Clinton 2016.
So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. Thank you all.
A short and to the point statement from Cedric Richmond, the Harris campaign co-chair, speaking to what is still a considerable crowd at Howard University.
And remember, guys, Kamala Harris did not give her concession speech that night, but she also didn't come out and speak to the crowd. They sent him to go out and speak to the crowd. Some of the students were really disappointed and they were just like, I can't believe she kind of just left us hanging. At one point in the middle of the night, like she left and they said she has already left the building. You know what I mean? And the students were just kind of like, no goodbye, no nothing like that. So, yeah, buddy. Yeah.
In Washington, D.C., you now see them turn as one to start to leave the grounds.
The evening was getting increasingly somber as people realized what this map is looking like. At what point they turned off the TV set and just piped up the music.
Yeah, at one point they turned it off and piped up the music. Let's go to this part here.
Tight in terms of whether or not they're going to string people along.
Yesterday about how come yet, but that is not what they are receiving, and they are being told to go home and wait till tomorrow. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. She had every prominent celebrity voice. You could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true of Africa.
And I've gotten people from Western Europe.
And this was another thing. There's no such thing as a flawless campaign. There's no such thing. There's always room for improvement. You know how like you have those your reviews at work and there's the option for exceptional? Well, no one at my job ever got exceptional. No one gets that because that means there's no room for improvement. There's always room for improvement. So that was them trying to say, well, she did everything right. She didn't do everything right. Joe Biden didn't do everything right either. The Democratic Party really missed the button here. So number 9 was Kamala Harris loses the presidential race. And of course, I think we know what happened after that as well, is that MSNBC and CNN, their ratings started to tank significantly because they did mislead voters into thinking that Kamala Harris had a chance here. Kamala Harris's staff came forward after the loss in multiple interviews and said they were surprised at the results, that the poll results that were reported on corporate media, because the polls that they saw internally never showed that Kamala Harris was ahead of Donald Trump. Never showed it. So again, that was corporate media misleading you. Surprise, surprise. Okay. Let's go to some of the comments and we'll get to the next one. Thank you, John, for the super chat. What are your thoughts on Batman, the animated series from the 90s? To me, it's the definitive Batman outside the comics. I didn't watch too much of that. I wasn't too into the superhero cartoons, to be honest with you. But I do have friends that did watch Batman, the animated series. People tell me I should watch it. Maybe I'll check it out and I'll let you know. Thank you, Charlie. What? Kamala lost? Yep. And HMM said, where's that campaign donation money? Yeah. And then that was another thing that was mentioned, was the amount of money that was spent on the campaign, which was obviously a serious problem. Okay. We are making our way to number 8, ladies and gentlemen. And I think when I put this on the survey, I wrote the wrong hurricane name, but because I wrote the right city, I think everybody figured this out what I was talking about. So sorry about that. It was 2 hurricanes back to back, but I think you guys figured it out. Ladies and gentlemen, number 8 is Hurricane Milton destroys Asheville, North Carolina. Let's get into this one.
North Carolina is cleaning up from the worst flooding ever on record for the state. More than 100 people are dead from Helene, a number that's still expected to rise. Hundreds more are missing, and roughly 2.1 million customers are without power across the region. New drone video shows just how bad the situation is in Asheville. The city's now isolated after roads leading there flooded and cell towers were knocked down. One emergency official calls it biblical devastation. Tamara Scott of our ABC station in Raleigh is near Asheville right now. Tamara, what kind of damage are you seeing?
Hey, good morning. Well, we are in Swannanoa right now. It's a small town just east of Asheville. The sign says, welcome to Swannanoa, with churches and businesses all across this road, but that no longer exists for this town. Take a look here just to my right. This is just part of the devastation that we are seeing in this area. These floodwaters came in and took out almost this entire town and left just so much destruction here. There's a car down in that valley there. You see this tree branch coming into what was once a bridge here and an entire shipping container. And if you walk just a little further over this way, you'll see where the shipping container, I was here on Friday morning when the waters were rushing in. I saw this shipping container several hundred feet back that way. It ended up right here and left many sinkholes in the area, as you can see here. And just to show you just how heavy the water was, just how powerful it was, it took out this street, it took out these lights here, these power poles that has left these people in this area without power for days. And there are so many people here who need water, they need food, the power and gas. There are all so many stranded in this area hoping for some relief. Now, I have spoken with some people here, great Samaritans and good citizens who are working.
We'll pause here and I'll chime in. And just for those who are not aware, I went to high school in North Carolina, though I live in Massachusetts now, but North Carolina is not unfamiliar with hurricanes. But what was different about Asheville is that Asheville is in the mountains. Asheville isn't known to have floods. So this particular hurricane devastated people in Asheville. We're talking about mudslides. You're not used to dealing with that. Those of us that lived on the coastal part of North Carolina, we were used to that because it's not uncommon for us to get flooding, right? So, and I mean, heavy rainstorms can give you a flood in the coastal part of North Carolina. It doesn't have to be a hurricane. So we were more equipped to dealing with that. And when it comes to hurricanes, some of the biggest damage sometimes is not necessarily from the winds, but from the flooding, from the water. And that's what you have to be very much concerned about. It's not just about your car flooding. It's about the flooding coming up so high that if you decided to, hub down in your house, you may not be able to get out the front door. It's things like that. There have been hurricanes in North Carolina where people were sitting on the rooftop of their homes because the water was starting to come in. So Asheville doesn't know how to deal with flooding. Like I said, it's the mountains. It doesn't usually flood there. And I do have a former comrade of mine that does live in Asheville, North Carolina. And she did post on Facebook what they were facing, what they were dealing with, and that the people in the town had pretty much lost everything. So when these things happen, the government is supposed to be there and help the people. And I go back to Hawaii. I go back to Lahaina, how the government just wanted to give people, what, like $700? That's nothing when you've lost everything. And the same thing in Asheville, North Carolina. They just want to give people a couple $100 is nothing when you've lost your home. What about the people that had babies? There was a woman that lost her baby. Like, it just, these types of things. And, you know, we don't always know what is going to come. We don't always know what's going to be, but we do know that our government has no problem giving billions to Ukraine or Israel. But when it comes to us, it's, let me give you a couple $700. So from what I understand, people are still struggling in Asheville, North Carolina. That's what happens when you lose so much.
Working to get resources into this area, but that is a struggle because the main highways are blocked. There's only one way in and out of Asheville. And again, this is just about 5 miles east of Asheville, and everything east of here is blocked. I-40 right there is blocked, so you can't go east, you can't go north, you can't go west. There's one way in and out, and that is south. And, you know, rescue crews, law enforcement, they're urging people to just kind of stay put where they are as they work and manage to get the supplies in that people need, the food, the water, the baby formula that these families desperately need right now. And then once they can get that, the main question is, what is next? I mean, I've talked with the Swannanoa fire chief here, and he's been here for 40 years. He has never seen anything like this before. There are still so many people who are unaccounted for. Right now, they are leaning on their faith and the hope that this community can come together and lean on each other. Back to you guys.
And some of us remember Hurricane Katrina. And I remember people that lived in New Orleans just had to leave. They left everything behind and they were relocated to other states, but it took some time for that to happen. There were people who were standing on the top of the roof of their house saying, come help us. People were like, where's the government? Why is Tim McGraw showing up to New Orleans before the president does? It's things like that, right? So I think that we have to be there for each other. And one of the things that the comrade I was telling you about that lives in Asheville said was, when this happened, the community came together to help each other. And this is why I advocate so much for mutual aid, because at the end of the day, you have to, did I say Milton? Okay, so it is Helene. I did it again. Sorry, guys. Hurricane, let's move this out the way and let's edit that. I don't know why I keep saying Milton, probably because that was the other one. Okay, we fixed it. Thanks. But I just think that it is important that you have community building. It is important that we're able to help each other, because this is what you end up being faced with. And you never know. That's why I say get to know your neighbors. You never know when you may need them. But yeah, that one was very, very devastating. And I just saw this comment here from Tabitha. The residents of Asheville are still dealing with the devastation while Biden naps on the beach and Harris drinks a trough of hair of the dog. Yeah, I mean, it's when people go through these types of, disasters, it can take months, maybe like a little over a year sometimes, before you can get back on your feet. Like this is not like fixed like that. And I've seen people lose everything. Like, there have been devastating hurricanes, not just hurricanes, but earthquakes, tornadoes. Those of you, if you live in states like Oklahoma, you are probably pretty familiar with tornadoes. You've probably seen people lose everything. And where do you go? Where do you start from there? And that's where FEMA is supposed to come in and really help. Now, I bring that up because Jordan Sheraton did speak to people in Asheville, North Carolina. And a lot of people weren't helped like they should have been. There's so many dead bodies that you can smell it. The stench is becoming unbearable. So this was Jordan Sheraton asking, why aren't these people being helped?
There are people that are still stranded. They're not getting help. They're stranded. They're landlocked. They're in floods. And the FEMA, okay, so I did go up into Asheville yesterday. There's one way in and one way out. I actually made it up into Asheville and around into OT. And the damage, I mean, houses literally washed down the road, or they're covered. There's mudslides. But Asheville, there's so many dead bodies that you can smell it. The stench is becoming unbearable. Like, you can smell it. There are that many dead people. It's bad. It's very, very, like, I can't describe to you how bad it is.
And when you say FEMA, is it that FEMA can't get into certain areas, or FEMA isn't doing enough?
They're not doing enough. Where I went to, we had family members in Asheville. We got to the house. They said that FEMA was there, asked what they needed. There's 2 babies in the house. Asked what they needed. They said, we need water and formula. They left, never came back. How long are babies supposed to wait on formula? How long are people supposed to wait on water? How long are they supposed to wait? So they were there. They know what they need. Where are they? You know, we saw emergency vehicles riding around. We had to get into Asheville. We drove over live power lines and under fallen trees to get to our family members. The people are helping the people. The people are helping the people. But here's another problem. So they're telling people to donate to FEMA, not to bring supplies in, to donate to FEMA, and FEMA's got it under control. That is not the case. FEMA does not have it under control.
Yeah, notice what she said. The people are helping the people. And oftentimes that's what you'll see happen when disaster strikes. There are many families that were evacuated from New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina that can never afford to go back and live in New Orleans. Some of those neighborhoods, not all of them, but some of those neighborhoods have been gentrified. Some of those neighborhoods have been remodeled after they were gone, and the property value increased and they sold them to the highest bidder. So some of those families that grew up in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina did not have the money to go back. I know this because my next door neighbor, there were 5 of them. They were all living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and they told me what happened. They came from New Orleans. This was during Hurricane Katrina, and they told me about they didn't want to leave their home and that they wanted to go back, but they couldn't afford to go back. So it happens, and we have to talk about it. At the end of the day, though, the people look out for the people. That's why mutual aid is so incredibly important. Let's go to some of the comments. Thank you for the super chat, Sparky. Aaliyah's entourage insisted on squeezing 10 people, including 2 300-pound bodyguards, into a 8-person plane. Capacity of planes is based on 165 pounds per person. Pilots should have stopped it. Tragic. Yeah, there's a lot about that story. Thank you, My Spun. Flawless. That campaign had more flaws than a clumsy person learning to juggle. Robert says the 90s animated Batman was cool. Everybody keeps telling me, so I guess I got to check it out because everybody keeps telling me this. Thank you, Jasmine. These poor people are still suffering from Helene's damage, and it's now winter. That's right. And we all know it snows in the mountains in North Carolina. You may not get snow hardly on the coast, but you will in the mountains. Tabitha said the residents of Asheville are still dealing with the, I said that one, sorry. Lana says wildfires in California. There you go. And Cassio says it took at least 2 years for most of the victims of the Alameda fires of 2020 to recover. Yeah, it's like you're starting all over from scratch. And then you may not have your job. Some of the people, like some of the businesses that were destroyed, that could have been someone's job. So now not only did you lose everything, but now you don't have a job. So that's something to keep in mind. Something to keep in mind. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please be sure to make sure, if you haven't done so, to smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. And we are moving on to the next story, fam. Dun, 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 dun. We are now at number 7. This was a huge one. I'm actually surprised this one was not further up on the list, but I think I know why, because of the other stories that got there. Number 7, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and bring it in. Julian Assange is freed. Let's get into this one. Woohoo! Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you so much for waking up with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm Jeanne Francine, waking up with you on this Wednesday morning. It is June 26th, and we have a lot of breaking news headlines to share with you. The first one actually takes us out to Canberra, Australia. You're getting a live look at this hour, now 1 minute before the 6 o'clock hour here on the East Coast. Soon to depart this plane is going to be WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. So we are following this feed. It just popped up right here into our Live Now from Fox Studios. Again, he has arrived in Canberra. Assange has been sentenced to time already served in Britain as a part of that plea agreement with the U.S. Justice Department that secures his freedom. And right now you see him departing that plane. I'm going to pot up the audio so we can listen in.
Woohoo!
Lawyer. Hugging Stella. Oh, Stella there? Yeah, he's hugging her now. Oh. He picked her up in the air. Kissed her on the cheek, kissed her on the mouth. Yeah. Big kisses. Dad. He's hugging his dad. Kisses. Yeah, hugging his dad.
And that's his dad. I met Julian Assange's dad and his brother. I did not meet Stella, but I interviewed his brother and his dad last year. I think it was last year. Eric can tell me in the background if I'm correct, but I believe that was last year. I was super excited when this happened. I was very, very shocked because I did not expect this to happen this year. I really didn't. And I thought that they were going to leave Julian Assange in Belmarsh and they were going to just let him rot away. When this happened, I was extremely shocked. At first, I was like, is this for real? Is someone trying to troll people on Twitter or is this like real? And once I realized it was real, I was like, holy crap. Probably one of the, and Stella is probably one of the nicest people as well. One of the biggest feel-good stories of the year was this one. And I think with all the craziness that happened this year, I think we really did need a win. I still think that he should be pardoned, right? I think the U.S. should fix that as well. But we really needed a big one. Julian Assange did speak after he was freed. I want you to hear what he said. This is very important, this part right about here.
And that when we pick a disfavored group, Muslims at that time, and say, well, this repressive legislation, it's only going to be for them. Inevitably, bureaucrats, elements of the security state will seize upon those measures and apply them more broadly. Injustice to one person spreads soon enough to most people.
Yep.
I don't know the statistics on how often arrest warrants are abused. There was an attempt to extradite me without any charge from the United Kingdom by Sweden. The UK government subsequently changed the law to prevent extradition without charge. But in its amendment to the extradition legislation, it included a rider to make sure that it didn't apply to me.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Cook.
That was he was responding to a question there in the audience. So did you hear what he said about like when there is that mistreatment, when there is that prejudice, that oppression, it does spread. It's not confined, right? So we can see that with Gaza, right? We can see that with the Middle East. We can see that here in the United States. It isn't contained. It will spread. So Julian Assange freed, again, one of the feel-good stories of the year. And Stella Assange, she has already posted Christmas pictures of him with the family on Twitter. So if you don't follow Stella on Twitter, follow her. She does most of the posting of the pictures and all that jazz. So it's great that he can be home with his family. And correct King Young, Assange is free, but political prisoners from the 60s still are locked up. This is true. This is true. And we've talked about this before, that there's still this ongoing fight for those prisoners to be freed as well. And also people like Assata Shakur should be able to come back to the United States. You know, it's things like that. We've talked about Leonard Peltier, who was denied parole recently. None of these people should be prisoners. None of them. But that was number 7, was Julian Assange is freed. I'll go to these comments here and we'll go to number 6. Tia says, Sabby, Heart of Ice. That is my recommended Batman, the animated series episode. Okay, I'll remember that. Eric says, Heart of Ice is fantastic, Tia. So apparently this is a big one. Apparently, and thank you for the super chat, Sparky. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Martin Luther King Jr. That's right. Like I told you, it spreads. It can spread. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to number 6, and then I'll go to The Rock Finn. All right, making sure I am on the right one here. Yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this was another one that happened. I mean, I swear to God, I can't remember a year where there's been this much foreign policy news. So I tried to be fair, and then like you guys did the ranking, but this is another one. Apparently, we couldn't get out of 2024 without an overthrow. Apparently, we couldn't get out of 2024 without an overthrow. So that brings us to number 6, ladies and gentlemen. Again, you rank these. Syria is overthrown. Let's get into this story here.
As rebel supporters cheered in the streets and they tore down monuments to the Assad family. We have new video in this morning. It shows rebels escorting Syria's prime minister reportedly to a hotel to officially hand over government authority. Shortly before that, the prime minister released this message. He said he was ready to work with new leadership.
We are ready to cooperate with any leadership the people choose, offering all possible support to ensure a smooth and systematic transition of government functions, preserving state facilities.
The prime minister said this happened very quickly, with rebels sweeping through the country since launching the offensive last week. And they claim to have captured 4 cities in a single day before reaching Damascus.
And what did I tell you before on the show? Of course, they were backed by the United States government and for Israel. So this was a win for Israel. Once this overthrow happened, Israel advanced into Syria, which is also a part of the Greater Israel Project. So again, this was backed by the United States and Israel. The United States, who feared and obviously saw Al-Qaeda as very problematic, all of a sudden is fine working along with Al-Qaeda. So when these things happen, make sure that you take note, because we do have to hold these government officials accountable, the ones that said all these things to you over the years about how dangerous Al-Qaeda was, and now they have no problems working with Al-Qaeda. So just keep these things in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Take note.
And now the rebels are questioning Syrian military officers and others trying to find Bashar al-Assad. Even they made it here, you can see, inside his palace. We begin our team coverage with CNN chief international anchor Christiane Amanpour, who is live in Doha. Christiane, to you, with this rapid advance and overthrow, as we welcome in a new audience at the top of the hour, just set the context for us, what this means for the Syrian people, for the larger region, and, you know, some of those questions that we'll have to wait to get answers to.
Indeed, Victor. So the Turkish foreign minister has just finished a press conference in which he said, "We woke up this morning to a totally new Syria. The Assad regime has fallen. It's over." This wasn't just 50 years of dictatorial rule. It was one family rule that had a lock on Syria for the last 5 decades. And this all spiraled and started back in 2011, about 13 years ago, along with the Arab Spring, when the Syrians, young Syrians in the town of Deraa tried to, protest the Assad government. They weren't even calling him to be overthrown by that. And they just wanted democracy, freedom, the kind of things young people want. The Assad.
Pay attention to what she said here about democracy. Isn't that the same thing they told you about Syria? Not Syria, but Libya. Didn't they tell you, they just, the people want democracy, but there was already, democracy in Libya. They told you that Gaddafi was killing his own people. These are things just to keep in mind. Again, this is coming from CNN. Remember the narrative that they support, which is the narrative of the State Department. So Professor Morandi talked a little bit more about this in a way that she is not going to. This was Professor Morandi. He came onto this show as well, but this was him the night this happened. He was on Danny Haifong's show. Listen to what he said here to Danny.
He carried out this campaign, this dirty war in Syria, and the West funded him. Countries in the Persian Gulf, oil and gas-rich countries funded him. Turkey supported him. And tens of thousands of foreign fighters were brought into Syria by Western intelligence agencies and the Turkish intelligence agency. And these people joined Al-Qaeda and ISIS and their affiliates.
Yep.
So this is obviously a catastrophe for Syria. Mr. Erdogan is the first and foremost person responsible for this catastrophe. He is the person responsible for this. And I do remember late in 2011, Alistair Crook, who was based in Pakistan in the 1980s, he told me that this is a dirty war in late 2011. And he explained to me that the same people who are in Pakistan and running the war in Afghanistan are now in Istanbul. He told me this in late 2011. He knew them. So instead of saying Assad killed hundreds of thousands of Syrians, it's the Americans, it's the Israelis, it's the country, it's the regimes and the dictatorships in the Persian Gulf region. But first and foremost, and it's Jordan, the Jordanian regime, but first and foremost, it's Mr. Erdogan. And
so that's a little bit there from Professor Morandi. Feel free to watch that full interview on Danny Haifong's channel. It's called Syria Collapses, Assad Flees to Moscow. So yeah, that was the other thing. Assad did flee. He did get protection in Moscow. So that's where, he's at. Crazy times that are everything that has taken place in the Middle East the past year and a half. It's wild that Israel is basically they're bombing so many people, and it's just the narrative that Israel is the good guy doesn't work anymore, particularly after October 7th. Now, some of us already knew that, but most Americans did not. And a lot of people have woken up. So that was number 6. Syria is overthrown, and Assad did flee to Moscow. That was another big foreign policy story. I got to tell you, folks, it's been a crazy ass year. What did Cat Williams say? What did he say? All lies will be exposed. That's what he said towards the beginning of 2024. I wonder what he's going to say about 2025. Who knows? Let's go to some of the comments. ADR says Americans delete their own citizens too. What? Tell it. You better tell it. Imana says Sabbath. All of your commentaries are always great, informative, and on point. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. That's really, oh, you called me Sabbath. That's kind of, okay. The Black Sabbath song coming into my head now. Laugh says, you should get Syrian Girl on at Partisan Girl. Yes. Thank you for the reminder. I do want to speak to her as well. And thank you, Kevin, for the super chat. Arab Springs, color revolutions equal CIA fakes. Let's get the comment on Rockfin, Eric. I'm back in the saddle again. Oh, I think that's AC/DC. Someone give me a Black Sabbath song. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin Roger. Why does FEMA need donations? It's a government agency, not a 501c3. If FEMA out here asking for money, then how much did Congress cut from their budget? Oh, that's a good question. X-Men Saturday morning cartoon was best. Batman after school, close to second. Hey, hey, hey. Oh, that was Aerosmith? Damn. Thank you. Thank you, A1. Thank you, A1. Hey, I'm familiar with the song. That's right. All lies will be exposed. There it is. There it is. War Pigs. Oh, is that the one that goes, generals gather at their masses? Da-da. I know a little bit of that one. I like the beat of that one. Anywho, let me get back to the stories. All right, guys, we are moving on to number 5. Number 5. Dun, dun, dun. We're getting closer and closer to number 1. Of course, I don't think anyone can forget about this one. It wouldn't have been 2024 without this. Who can forget Trump survives assassination attempt? Let's jog your memory. Do you remember? I remember.
Move his spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Get ready. We ready?
Okay, we are watching live at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where former President Trump was speaking on the stage. There has been some kind of disturbance that clearly sets law enforcement and Secret Service into motion, immediately jumping around the former president in a protective mode. The crowd has been screaming. They are standing by. You can hear some voices there saying, are we ready to go? Are we ready to go? We are looking at President Trump. This does not look good. I'm going to be honest with you. From what we can see right here, it looks like they are attempting to move him out, that he may have been injured. He is holding up his arm. He is pumping his fist, but clearly Secret Service wants to get him out of this situation.
And of course, I think we can all remember that iconic. Yeah, TD said, what a moment I will never forget. Yeah, I mean, like, listen, guys, okay? I'm not that old. I'm not that young. I have never. No, there haven't been. There have been before this no presidential assassination attempts during my adult life. None. So for me, I was like, holy crap, this is a thing again? Because presidential assassinations was something I read about in history books. That was something we were taught in school, right? But I didn't, like, to me, that was not a thing anymore. So this was kind of a reminder that, like, holy crap, it could still happen. So I think we all remember that. I don't think, whether you like Trump or not, I don't think anybody will forget about that, right? Especially if you're part of, like, millennial generation like me, because, like I said, we just don't remember. We don't remember these, happening before. Donald Trump did speak about the assassination attempt. We'll get into a little bit of that.
Let me begin this evening by expressing my gratitude to the American people for your outpouring of love and support following the assassination attempt at my rally on Saturday. As you already know, the assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life. So many people have asked me, what happened? Tell us what happened, please. And therefore, I will tell you exactly what happened, and you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell. It was a warm, beautiful day in the early evening in Butler Township in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Music was loudly playing, and the campaign was doing really well. I went to the stage, and the crowd was cheering wildly. Everybody was happy. I began speaking very strongly, powerfully, and happily, because I was discussing the great job my administration did on immigration at the southern border. We were very proud of it. Behind me and to the right was a large screen that was displaying a chart of border crossings under my leadership. The numbers were absolutely amazing. In order to see the chart, I started to, like this, turn to my right and was ready to begin a little bit further turn, which I'm very lucky I didn't do, when I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard on my right ear. I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood, just absolutely blood all over the place. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to the stage, and they really did. They rushed to the stage. These are great people at great risk, I will tell you, and pounced on top of me so that I would be protected.
And I do want to mention this, and thank you so much for saying this, Eric, because a lot of times people forget there was someone who did die. Like, there was an innocent bystander who died. And I think, you know, with all the hoopla of, you know, Trump, like, you know, the attempt on his life, people do somewhat seem to forget that a woman did lose her life. You know, just someone who was there, like in the stands, just at the rally. So we can't forget that. Thank you for mentioning that, Eric. That's important.
There was blood pouring everywhere, and yet in a certain way I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that.
Sorry, yeah, Pamela, you're right. It was a man. You're right. Yeah. We just can't forget about that, because I don't even hear about that person anymore. Like, I feel like we heard about it like maybe that day and maybe the day after this happened, but I feel like we don't hear about that person anymore. So we can't forget that.
Amazing thing is that prior to the shot, if I had not moved my head at that very last instant, the assassin's bullet would have perfectly hit its mark, and I would not be here tonight. We would not be together. The most incredible aspect of what took place on that terrible evening in the fading sun was actually seen later. In almost all cases, as you probably know, and when even a single bullet is fired, just a single bullet, and we had many bullets that were being fired, crowds run for the exits or stampede, but not in this case. It's very unusual.
Yeah, they tell you, I know when we practice this at work, it's crazy that we have to have these drills at work, but we do. This is the world that we live in. At my former job, we practice drills at work of what to do if there was an active shooter situation. And what we were trained to do was to get down. If there's somewhere to hide, but we were told not to run until we thought that it was safe. But that's what they trained us to do. And it seemed like that's what most people were doing at that rally, is that they got down. But that's what they were training us to do. But the assassination attempt, we're not going to go through the whole speech, but I don't think that we can forget that, right? Like, we're not going to forget that happened. I know people mentioned Ronald Reagan. Robert, you were born after Reagan. I don't even think I was born when Reagan was assassinated. You'll have to remind me the year and the time, because I don't think I was born yet. So I might have just missed it. You guys trying to find out my age. I see what you're doing. I see you over there. Let's get to the comment from Roger, Eric. Sneaky. Thank you, Roger, for the tip on Rockfin. The U.S. never has permanent allies. Wonder when we will turn against Israel. I don't think we'll ever turn against Israel as long as AIPAC is embedded in our political system. As long as there's that lobby interest group of AIPAC, and there's also J Street as well, we're not going to turn against Israel. So if you follow the money, you'll see what happens there, ladies and gentlemen. Rich said Sabby is a baby, but a baby that was around for Mario. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are almost done, fam. We are almost there. We are moving on to the fourth biggest story of 2024. Again, if you're just joining, the viewers voted and they ranked these news stories. So it wasn't my order. They did this on their own here. Eric, if we can go ahead to that next one. It should be, I don't want to say it on here because I surprise people. The fourth story. Thank you very much. So looking out for honey, let me tell you something, Christmas sheep. If I look like this is 73, then I'll be like on Tina Turner level. That's my goal in life. Like, I would love to look as great as Tina Turner looks, when I'm 70. Can we make that happen? Like, I know Tina died, but I'm just saying, like, Tina was the thing. Okay. I love Tina Turner. I still love Tina Turner. If I can look as great as Tina does when I'm 70, and I'll say, damn, I made it. Tina had those good genes, buddy. Those good genes. And maybe a little bit of nipping and a little tuck too. I don't know, but she had those good genes. Okay. So now we are moving on to number 4. And I think Eric is queuing that up for us. Yeah, let's bring it in. This one was a shock to some people, but I figured it was going to happen at some point. We got to bring this one in. Number 4, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden drops out of the 2024 presidential race. Let's go in.
President Joe Biden has just announced that he is dropping out of the 2024 presidential race. In a stunning letter that was just released moments ago by his campaign on X, formerly known as Twitter, Biden wrote, quote, that it has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. He goes on to say that he will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about his decision. Just a stunning announcement from President Joe Biden that he intends to step down as a candidate in the 2024 election. I want to go straight to CNN White House correspondent Priscilla Alvarez, who was traveling with President Biden in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Priscilla, what are you learning?
Hey.
Alex, this is a remarkable development, and it comes after a morning in which we heard more calls for the president to step down from members of his party, including, for example, Senator Joe Manchin. Now, the president in this letter released only moments ago walks through his accomplishments as president. And also, if I can read you this part, it says, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president." He goes on to say, "While it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." He goes on to say he plans to speak to the nation later this week. He also thanks Vice President Kamala Harris for, quote, "being an extraordinary partner in all of this work." Now, of course, Alex, this comes after that disastrous debate performance by the president in late June. It was after that that stoked so much anxiety and panic within the Democratic Party and led to a wave of calls over recent weeks for the president to step aside, to withdraw from this race. And this was something that, despite the president getting back on the campaign trail, despite private conversations with multiple lawmakers, and despite a campaign that up until this point had been maintained, even just yesterday, that he was in this race, it appears that we hit that breaking point. Now, of course, the president.
Now, of course, we got to pause here because I'm going to mention the part that she's leaving out. Long story short, let's not forget that Dem leadership. We had Hakeem Jeffries, Obama, Nancy Pelosi. Don't forget about Chuck Schumer as well. All came together and told Biden, you got to go. They said, Joe, you got to go. It is time to go, Joe. After those debate performances, Joe Biden did not want to drop out of the race. So as a way to get back at them for forming this coup against him, he decided to endorse Kamala Harris and nominate her for president instead. Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi wanted to have an open primary, so Joe Biden went against them in this way and said, "I'm going to get you motherfuckers." Because Joe Biden said, "I'm going to get you mofos. I'm going to get back at you." And that's what he did. And that's how Kamala Harris got into this race. Never forget that. Never forget. She did not go through the primary process, even though there were other candidates that did go through the Democrat primary process. So she's leaving that part out. I just want to add that part there.
It has been at his residence here in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. He has been self-isolating because he was diagnosed with COVID earlier in the week. It was that diagnosis that pulled him off of the campaign trail at a pivotal moment. He was in Nevada. He was shoring up support with Black and Latino voters. And it was before one of his last events that he got that positive COVID diagnosis and had to be blitzed back here to the East Coast, to Delaware, where he has since been self-isolating. It has been during that time that he's also been deliberating. He is with his closest advisors and his inner circle in what has been a challenging and at times frustrating time for this campaign. Now, we should also note, Alex, that earlier today on the airwaves, the president's allies were saying that he was in it to win it. Again, this was the resounding message that we were getting from the campaign time and time again. But this letter tells us that the president, upon self-reflection, upon all of the calls from Democratic lawmakers, allies, and donors for him to step aside, has listened to those calls and has decided to not seek re-election in what we really just cannot overstate how remarkable a moment this is. We are on the cusp of the Democrat.
We're going to stop there. She doesn't really take a breath. Honey, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. But yes, number 4 was Joe Biden drops out. Now, again, we do have to go back to that disastrous debate performance. And you'll see one clip here where it was obvious to everybody who was watching that debate, Joe, you're not with it. There's some things happening mentally there and you're not quite with it. But some of us remember seeing similarities during the 2024 Democratic presidential debates as well. Joe Biden wasn't performing well then either, but as the years went by, he became significantly worse, and you'll see that here.
What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? they're in a situation where they in fact pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Oh,
right.
God.
He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
That was one of the moments where more people were starting to pay attention and say, whoa, this guy is running again. What is happening here with Biden? And there was also, of course, this moment here as well. So just never forget. Do we have the right? Okay, here we go. Yeah.
States and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere, all over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in caravans.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything.
Lauren, I'm sorry. I had to put this one up there. Lauren said Biden is constipated.
Across the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration, killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons.
Oh boy, it was a doozy, guys, and I think that debate was forced, so they could force Joe Biden out of that race, because obviously that debate was hosted by CNN, and then it was earlier than they normally have the presidential debate. So that was a test run, I think, for Joe Biden to see if you still with it, Joe, prove to the people. And if not, that was their way of saying, okay, we got to use this as an excuse to push you out. That's really what I think. We are now moving on to number 3, ladies and gentlemen. Then I'll go to a couple comments and we'll get 2 and 1. Number 3. Everyone knows about the ICJ ruling that Israel must try to do its best to prevent a genocide. But there was another ruling that I think was even more important, because that ruling had to do with the occupation. Number 3, the ICJ rules that Israel should end the occupation. Here we go.
By 11 votes to 4, is of the opinion that the state of Israel's continued presence in the occupied territory is unlawful. Israeli settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem and the regime associated with them have been established and are being maintained in violation of international law. The court notes with grave concern report that Israel's settlement policy has been expanding since the court's full advisory opinion. La Cour considère que cette présence constitue un fait illicite qui engage la responsabilité internationale de cet État. By 11 votes to 4, is of the opinion that the state of Israel's
That was the vote there from the ICJ that Israel needs to end the occupation. So there isn't as much focus on that sometimes with the media. There's a lot of people that will point fingers and say it's not a genocide because if you look at the numbers, first of all, the numbers aren't true. That 50,000 people, it's way more people than that. When you look at the number of bombs that have been dropped, when you add the starvation to this and the people that are still buried under the rubble, we got to take that into consideration. I believe Ralph Nader said it's probably about 200,000 now. So keep that in mind. But then there's the issue of the occupation, which they don't really want to get into because what can you say there? Hamas is not in the West Bank. Israel's just demolishing people's homes, stealing Palestinian homes. So that ruling there was significantly important. Unfortunately for the ICJ, they don't have the ability to enforce it. And that's the part I think that hurts us the most, right? Like there was that ruling which damages Israel's reputation, which is great, but they really don't have the ability to enforce. And there was discussion about that here on the BBC when they talked about the occupation.
Welcome back to BBC News. Well, in the last few minutes, the UN's top court, the International Court of Justice, has delivered an advisory opinion outlining that Israel's settlement of Palestinian territories are in breach of international law. Now, it had been examining the issue since the beginning of last year. I think we can take a quick listen now to that opinion being given live.
The court considers it important to stress, as it did in its Wall advisory opinion, I quote, the urgent necessity for the United Nations.
This has been going on since before the October 7th attacks by Hamas and the start of the Gaza war.
Yep.
That's right. So this is the International Court of Justice, not the International Criminal Court. It's issuing an advisory. It's not legally binding, but it will be seen as a basis for international law. And it's examining the legality of Israel's occupation of Palestinian territory since 1967, particularly focusing on the West Bank and East Jerusalem and settlements therein. And it's a pretty damning verdict on Israel's actions and policies there. I'm just going to, because this is incredibly legalese, and as you can imagine, there was a big preamble as to what the framework of their work has been. This is delivered by the spokesperson for 15 judges. They've been examining this since 2022. They took evidence throughout February from around 50 countries. And their conclusions in brief are that Israel's policies and practices are in breach of international law. The continued presence of Israel in the occupied territories is illegal. And they call on Israel to cease all new settlement activity. It particularly focuses on the settlements and the treatment of Palestinians in those territories. Now, Israel, I think, they're unlikely to accept this. In the past, that they have not accepted the legality.
Right. So that's the part that I really wanted you to hear. Again, when they say the ICJ is more like an advisory, again, they don't have the ability to enforce any of these rulings, but it does set a precedent and it does set like a standard that like, okay, we have acknowledged that Israel is doing these things. So like I said, Israel, I don't think will ever be able to come back from the damage that has been done to their reputation since October 7th, because there are a number of people that I knew that thought it was the right thing to do to support Israel. And then October 7th happened, and then they started to dig a little bit more on their own and learn more about the history. And they're like, holy shit, this state has been occupying people for decades. What the hell was I doing? What was I thinking? Why didn't I know about it? You know, there were people who told me they didn't even know what Gaza was until October 7th. So the damage to Israel's reputation, I do not think can be fixed. And the world does look at Israel differently now, also because of those rulings from the ICJ. It's unfortunate. I do wish they did have the power to enforce, but they don't. That's where the UN Security Council is supposed to come in and be the enforcer. And that's where you would always see Linda Thomas Greenfield raise her hand to veto the ceasefire, and she's the representative from the United States. So that's the way it's set up. It sucks. But I said this in the beginning, South Africa, they knew that the ICJ didn't have the ability to enforce, but they took Israel to The Hague. They took them there to show people, to show the world what Israel was, what Israel really was about. That's why this was done. So you got to create that awareness first. I think that is really important. Let's go to some of the comments here and we'll get to the top 2 stories. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. I already figured it out. 1982 March. No. Roger wants to know my age so badly. So badly, man. I told you I'm a millennial. Older millennial. Kill Your Igorgi says, hot legs inspiration to Rod Stewart was Tina Turner. Well, I'll be damned. I did not know that. Tabitha said, black don't crack and brown don't frown. Thank you, Maria. Sabby is the hostess with the mostest. Thank you for being you. Thank you, Maria. Hobbs said, I ranked Joe's dropout as pretty low, but only because I had it on my 2024 bingo card. Yeah. Thank you, Tristan. Predict number 3. Kamala Harris was incompetent. Number 2, Netanyahu is U.S. president. These are funny. Number 1, Ukraine is our corruption, bribery, honeypot. Oh, hell, who cares about number 1? And Sheldon said, wasn't Tina Turner vegan or vegetarian? She was a Buddhist in her later years. Oh, I guess I'm screwed then. There goes that. Because I am not a vegan or a vegetarian. I'm not Buddhist. Oh, well, one can only dream. One can only dream. All right. Number 2. Boom. Number 2, ladies and gentlemen, the top second news story that you ranked number 2 was this one. How can we forget? I want to make sure I'm on the right one. 1 second. It should be here. All right. And I want to make sure. Sorry, I'm just checking something, you guys. Sorry to get you pumped up and then to. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. Number 2. Let's bring it in. Drum roll, please. Number 2 is Luigi Mangione allegedly kills United Healthcare CEO. This is number 2.
A killing in broad daylight. United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson shot in the back. Stunningly, the suspect at the center of the crime held not as a villain, but as a hero. Why the love for Luigi Mangione? Several are pointing to a healthcare system riddled with high cost and major disparities. Tattoos of Luigi Mangione's face, over $180,000 raised for his defense fund, with supporters lined up for the 26-year-old murder suspect outside of court. Adoration for an alleged killer, with the spotlight now sparking conversation about health insurance reform.
Right now I'm living with my parents because I can't afford to have a house, and that's from my physical impacts of my illness, but also the financial impacts too, of just paying for what it takes to keep me alive.
2 out of 5 adults say they delay visiting the doctor or filling prescriptions because of high cost. And for those who do get care, 1/3 say they become burdened with medical debt. The cost.
Pause here. You see what's happening here? The conversation that Bernie Sanders brought to the table in 2016 and 2020 is now back in the spotlight again after so many had walked away from it after Bernie lost in 2020. I do not advocate for violence on the show. Disclaimer. We always make that very clear. That being said, Luigi Mangione has brought the healthcare discussion back on the table. And during a time when no one is running for office. No one's running for president of the United States. Now, all of a sudden, people want to talk about how people can't afford healthcare. And we've been trying to sound the alarm about this for a long time. So the discussion is back on the table.
Medical care far outpacing inflation, with healthcare spending per person on average sitting at nearly $15,000. A new poll by Emerson College shows that 41% of people 18 to 29 say Mangioni's actions were somewhat or completely acceptable.
I think we're seeing a bigger issue with Gen Z, and they're reframing the issue in terms of the oppressors and the oppressed. I think Mangione has this kind of idea that somehow corporate people are the enemy. That's hardly the case.
Social media now the site of discourse on this crime, especially among the younger generation.
All of the CEOs out there being like, I'm so scared, violence is not the answer. And now you're upset. You want us to cry because some man got shot in broad daylight? This happens. Welcome to a regular Tuesday at school in America.
That video from Gen Z TikToker Rachel Geed has over 2 million likes.
Why do you think that it went viral and spoke to so many people?
It signifies that this is a time to be asking questions. For us and for like a generation, we're sitting here wondering why we should care about this when we haven't cared about all of the students that we've lost.
So for one, it's not just people that are Gen Z, it's people under the age of 65, people that aren't qualifying for Medicare. I mean, I'm a millennial. Don't forget, a lot of us went through the 2008 housing crisis. See, people forget these things. I remember what it was like trying to find a job in 2008, let alone I didn't have any health insurance in 2008. That's how I had medical debt. So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people in this country that have medical debt and never get out of it. I was lucky to get out of it, but it took me 3 years. We're talking about people that do have health insurance, but they have inadequate health insurance and they still have to come out of pocket to pay for things that they need, life-saving surgeries, people coming out of pocket to pay for chemotherapy. I had a friend that went through that had to pay for her husband's chemotherapy after insurance paid for it. She was paying $1,600 a week. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't have $1,600 a week to pay. Most people probably don't. So this has been an issue for a long, long time. It did not just become an issue. And we tried to tell the establishment about this for the longest time, but they are all in cahoots with what works for Wall Street, what works for corporate America. So this point that Chris Cuomo made that I pushed back on, Chris Cuomo said, I've been talking about this for years. That's exactly the point that I'm making. You've been talking about it for years. A lot of people have been talking about it for years. So oftentimes what happens is when the people who are dealing with this type of oppression or marginalization, the people who are at the bottom, when they feel like they are not being heard, what does that eventually lead to? Now, we're not saying that Luigi was at the bottom, but Luigi is basically a class traitor because he had a problem with the system.
According to correction officials who spoke to the New York Post, in the 10 days Mangione was behind bars in Pennsylvania, he received 54 emails, 87 physical letters, and 163 deposits into an account allowing him to buy commissary.
And we cannot forget what also happened, because in the eye of the public, they have already framed him in such a way to be guilty. We have to remember the perp walk that also happened.
Luigi Mangione, you're looking at pictures of him from just moments ago. He is now facing federal murder charges in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The charges include murder through use of a firearm and also 2 stalking charges and a firearms offense.
Mangione is expected to appear in a New York courtroom at 2 p.m. today, and that's after arriving in the city just last hour. He waived his right to an extradition hearing earlier today. Mangione also faces state charges both in New York and in Pennsylvania.
So we all knew that this was theater, right? We all knew they were trying to make an example out of Luigi Mangione. And by the way, I didn't see this many police surround Dylan Roof, who had killed 9 people. So this was the police way of sending a message to the elites, to the establishment, to let them know we got your back. They do not respond this way when someone's poor is killed. Hell, if you're poor and you're killed, they probably ain't even trying to find your killer. I'm just gonna keep it real. They protect wealth. They protect Capitol. But that was to send a message to other CEOs, to the elite, to the establishment, to let them know we got your back. In fact, his attorney came forward and she had some comments about that very perp walk. We want to bring that in as well.
Absolutely. All right.
Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to make a record, if that's okay with Your Honor. First, we'd request immediate expedited discovery in this case. The people have had this case for about almost 3 weeks, and that's more than enough time to gather as much information as they can give to us, especially now that we have two proceedings that we have to answer to, one of them being death eligible. So we are requesting that we get immediate discovery of the New York City Police Department and FBI and federal and state documents. And the second thing I want to make a record of, Your Honor, is I'm very concerned about my client's right to a fair trial in this case. He's being prejudiced by some statements that are being made by government officials. Like every other defendant, he's entitled to a presumption of innocence. But unfortunately, the way this has been handled so far, his rights are being violated. And as you know, Your Honor, there's a wealth of case law guaranteeing his right to a fair trial, but none of the safeguards have been put in place yet here. In fact, it's just the opposite of what's been happening. He's a young man, and he is being treated like a human ping pong ball between two warring jurisdictions here. These federal and state prosecutors are coordinating with one another, but at the expense of him. They have conflicting theories in their indictments, and they are literally treating him like he is like some sort of political fodder, like some sort of spectacle. He was on display for everyone to see in the biggest staged perp walk I've ever seen in my career. It was absolutely unnecessary. He's been cooperative with law enforcement. He had been in custody for over a week. He waived extradition. He was cooperative at all accounts. There was no reason for the NYPD and everybody to have these big assault rifles that, frankly, I had no idea was in their arsenal. And to have all of the press there, the media there, it was like perfectly choreographed. And what was the New York City mayor doing at this press conference?
That's a good question, because Eric Adams is dealing with his own damn indictment.
Your Honor, that just made it utterly political. And as Your Honor knows, under Lauro v. Charles, the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit has held it to be clearly established that these staged perp walks to the media, unrelated to a legitimate law enforcement objective, is unconstitutional. And I submit there was zero law enforcement objective to do that sort of perp walk. There's absolutely no need for that whatsoever. And frankly, Your Honor, the mayor should know more than anyone of the presumption of innocence that he too is afforded when dealing with his own issues. And frankly, I submit that he was just trying to detract from those issues by making a spectacle of Mr. Mangione, and there are consequences to this. He has a right to a fair trial, and I just want to put on the record statements that the mayor made publicly about my client. Nothing saying alleged, for example, and he said, I wanted to send a strong message with the police commissioner that we're leading from the front. I'm not going to just allow him to come into our city. I wanted to look him in the eye and state, you carried out this terrorist act in my city, the city of New York that I love. And he wanted to show symbolism. Your Honor, he's not a symbol. He's somebody who is afforded the right to a fair trial. He's innocent until proven guilty. And the mayor was talking to jurors, future potential jurors that elected him. Those are the people that elected him that he is talking to and calling this man a terrorist. So, Your Honor, I just want to make a record of this and put everyone on notice that this has to stop. And my client is entitled to a fair trial and the presumption of innocence. And we're going to fight these charges.
That's right. So I'm glad that she said what she did, because you notice on the show, I continue to say allegedly, because I don't want nobody come and try to sue me. Okay. All right. I don't want people coming to try to sue me. I said the same thing about Jay-Z, allegedly. Like, no. That was wrong for Eric Adams to make that statement as if he's already guilty. Eric Adams doesn't know that, again, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but we already know who Eric Adams really works for, right? Like, he need to go sit his ass down somewhere because he got to deal with his own damn indictment. That's just something that we need to face the reality with, folks. But that was number 2. Luigi Mangione allegedly kills United Healthcare CEO. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the trial of the year. If this trial starts in 2025, which it probably will, that is going to be the trial of the year. Wait for it. People are saying, what about the Diddy thing? I don't even know. I don't know if that's even we don't know. But I think this one in particular, you got to pay attention to that one, folks. So we will make sure that we keep an eye out for that. Okay. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for letting me know. Oh, Brown Bunny. Damn, I thought Luigi would be number 1. I had no idea how this was really going to go. But some of them I was kind of surprised with the ranking. So yeah, I know. I hear where you're coming from. And we are going to the number 1 story. That's right, folks. We're getting to number one. Bam. Okay. Going into number 1. If you haven't figured it out right now, we got to go ahead and drop the beat. We got to drop the beat, and then we'll go into the number 1 story. For this one, I created a compilation because it's just easier to show the story that way. So everybody just keep it real. Just easier to show it that way. But we are now going to the number 1 story, ladies and gentlemen. Let's bring it in. Here we go. The number 1 story that you voted for is the pro-Palestinian protest. You voted for it, not me. That is the number 1 story of 2024. Drop the beat, fam. Can we drop the beat? I got to find the beat. Here we go. Let's drop the beat. Hey! Drop the beat. Drop the beat. All right. And we are going to go ahead and jump right in. Compilation pro-Palestinian protests. Boom. I'm sabrinasalvati, host of Sabby podcast. I'm here actually around the corner from Copley Square at the Free Palestine March. So we have already started marching. There are 2 of the students that wrote that letter at Harvard University. They're actually going to be some of the speakers that you're going to hear from today as well as those who have lost loved ones in Palestine. So yeah, a great turnout so far. I don't know how many people, but it's got to be at least a couple thousand based on the number of people I've seen and how the line's been moving. So stay tuned.
All across Boston, all across Massachusetts, all across the nation, all across the world, we are seeing people rise up against the injustices that are taking place in Gaza today. We are rising. What we have seen in the past couple of weeks, from Harvard to Columbia to Berkeley to Tufts, is historic. It is historic. We know firsthand what these attacks feel like. There are lists with our names on it demeaning us and slandering us. They paraded a truck around campus with me and Amari and other organizers' face and names on it in an attempt to derail our organizing. Billionaire Bill Ackman is mobilizing the ruling class to make us unemployable. But we shall not be deterred. We stand proud. We raise our flag. We raise our sign. We wear the beard. We wear them.
All right. I don't know how many people are out here, but it is a lot of people, folks. Check it out. And it goes all the way down there.
If we don't get it, shut it down! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Free Palestine! We don't get it! Shut it down! They're trying to silence us, but we can't be silenced. We're Palestinian, and we're all Palestinians. We all stand for human rights. We all want to see a free Palestine.
Palestinians need their voices to be heard because we are people and we are being occupied.
And today I stand for my people in Palestine. May God be with them, and we're with them too.
And when they tell us that the claims of our South African brothers and sisters are meritless, and you see they've said the names a number of times, so you know they got talking points. Meritless. Have you seen Gaza? Have you seen West Bank? Not just after August 7th. Did you see it in 1948? Did you see it in 1967? Did you see it in 2008? Did you see it in 2014? And you're still looking, and all you can say is meritless. Biden, how cold-hearted and mean-spirited can you be? Got the nerve to go down to a black church where black people were crushed by some sick white supremacist brother. And then you know you're enabling blowing up mosques in Gaza, blowing up churches in Gaza, blowing up places where Jesus himself was born. I'm a Christian. I'm a revolutionary Christian. I come out of the household of Irene and Clifton. I come out of Shiloh Baptist Church. I'm influenced by the Black Panther Party. Don't tell me. Don't tell me that you can see what I see and call it meritless.
Yep. There it is. I don't know why. There we go.
Don't tell me that you can see what I see and call it meritless.
Eric, I don't know why it keeps doing. Should I just wait? The next one is really important. I'll let you handle that. Thank you. I can fast forward, but it's just the next part is really important. Oh yeah, you did it. I don't know what happened. I'm Sabrina Salvati, host of Sabby podcast. I'm here at, well, actually around the corner from Copley Swift.
The embassy in Washington. Authorities identified.
And you see, they've said the names a number of times, so you know they got talking points. 7. Did you see it in 2008? Where black people were crushed by some sick white supremacist brother. And then you know you're enabling blowing up mosques in Gaza, blowing up churches in Gaza, blowing up places where Jesus himself was born. I'm a Christian. I'm a revolutionary Christian. I come out of the household of Irene and Clifton. I come out of Shiloh Baptist Church. I'm influenced by the Black Panther Party. Don't tell me. Don't tell me that you can see what I see and call it meritless.
A deadly protest outside the Israeli embassy in Washington. Authorities identified Aaron Bushnell as the person who, on Sunday, set himself on fire. The 25-year-old was an active duty member of the U.S. Air Force. CNN's Gabe Cohen joins us now with the details. And Gabe, this is something that he did in protest.
Yeah, that's correct. And we're learning much more about this 25-year-old active duty airman, Aaron Bushnell, as you mentioned. He's from San Antonio, Texas, and he live streamed his actions on Sunday in broad daylight on the streets of D.C. outside the Israeli embassy. We are not going to show that video. It is extremely graphic and disturbing. I have watched the video. I can tell you at the beginning, at the start of it, you can see Bushnell walking up to the embassy on the street in his military fatigues. He's speaking calmly to the camera. I want to read a portion of what he says. He said, quote, "I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it is not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal." He then goes on to pour some sort of accelerant, it looks like, on his head out of a water bottle he was carrying. And then he lights himself on fire, Boris. And as the flames engulf him, you can hear him yelling, free Palestine," again and again, until finally he collapses. And that is when officers, you can see them race in, one of them with a fire extinguisher in their hands, trying to put out the flames. But it takes time. And as we have learned, Bushnell died in the hospital at some point later on. And look, it really speaks to the tensions that are continuing to escalate around the war in Gaza, not just across the world, but here in the United States. We saw a similar incident in December when someone self-immolated, lit themselves on fire outside of the Israeli consulate in Atlanta. But this feels different. This is an active duty member of the military burning himself to death on the streets of the nation's capital.
Solidarity with human suffering, especially when it is imposed by human beings, and I'm talking about the indescribable genocide of our precious Palestinians in Gaza. You are on the right side of history. Colombia is complicit in the slaughter of Palestinians. Colombia is complicit in the slaughter of Palestinians.
They've kicked me out of my housing. They confiscated our items after the sweep. I had no way of getting warm clothing. I had no way of getting food. I told them I needed my medication. I told them I needed my house key. I told them I needed my telephone. And they said it's not an emergency.
Where we were asked by students to come and participate and to stand with them as police really threatened them. There in that picture, you actually see us standing with some of the aldermen of St. Louis who are also taking the part of the students and their right to protest, their right to discuss and debate a very critical issue in American foreign policy right now, and their right, of free speech. So we were there, and basically the police charged us, despite our efforts to de-escalate. They charged us with bicycles, and you'll see plenty of footage of that around the internet. They basically used their bicycles as a weapon to push us back, to push us over onto our backs. And in my case, one of the officers actually lifted up one of my feet. You can see in some of this footage where I'm basically being thrown backwards, like onto my head. And I wiggled out of that assault and was told by the officer that I was assaulting him.
Y'all gotta go back and wrap it up here. Because we are fucking tired of our fucking tax dollars going to kill children in another fucking country. That is why we are out here. And these fucking bitch ass pigs are part of the goddamn problem. Because these are the same motherfuckers that go over there and train with the fucking IDF. And look at them. Look at the way they fucking act. This is the militarized fucking police force. This is the shit that we do within America. Now just
fucking imagine what those children and those men and those women and those fucking grandparents in Gaza are experiencing right now. The whole world is watching! We are going to chant! We are going to chant! Let Gaza live! 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 Let Gaza live!
Here in New York, about 500 members of Jewish Voice for Peace and their allies rallied at the Statue of Liberty Monday to demand a ceasefire in Gaza. Protesters wore black T-shirts reading, "Not in our name."
Committee will suspend.
You're a dictator too, genocide Joe! Tens of thousands of
To be silent in this moment. In the last 3 weeks, I've gone back and I've done some research, and I'm teachable. I don't know enough, but I know enough that this is a genocide. And we are scared. We are watching it unfold. We have been taught to just be complicit, to protect our careers, to protect our interests. And I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm not afraid to speak the truth.
Protesters at the port of Oakland are blocking a U.S. ship that will be sending military weapons to Israel. So this happened first. Wow.
Goes on to pour some.
All I can say is that, and I'm about to wrap it up here, but all I can say, I want to end it with Aaron here, with Aaron Bushnell. Watching that compilation, like when I was making it, is different than sitting back looking at it now. I can't help but get teary-eyed. When you look at everything that has happened, people really came out in full force for the protest across the world. We saw the same thing happen with the George Floyd protest across the world, a global uprising. And so going into 2025, I think it is really important. The only way that we are really going to beat back and we are going to fight against the oppression and occupation of anybody is that the people who are in power, the elites, the oligarchy, they are the ones that are controlling all of it. Our government won't withdraw weapons to Israel because the politicians belong to AIPAC and J Street. Think about that. We have billionaires buying elections. We have billionaires making decisions in our government when the politicians are supposed to respond to the constituents. They respond to their donors instead. The entire world rose up against Israel. The entire world. And when you look back and you see all those videos, and those are just a few, but all of the video mashup that I created, there's no way, if we don't have billionaire control, if we don't have an oligarchy controlling the government, there's no way Palestine isn't free yesterday. It's not just about foreign policy. It connects everything. If we don't have oligarchy controlling our government, there's no way everybody in this country doesn't have health care. You feel me? If we don't have an oligarchy controlling our government, there's no way that there's homelessness in this country. There's no way a child goes hungry in the United States of America. If we don't have the oligarchy controlling the government and exploiting the people, exploiting the labor, there's no way. The people in the White House are puppets. They respond to the donor class. They're actually further down on the totem pole than you think. So we have to change our framing going into 2025. Stop saying the president can't do, they can. Stop saying they don't understand, they do. Stop saying they just don't get it or they're not willing to budge. This is all false. Stop saying they can be pushed. We can push them this way. We can push them that way. Stop saying that. You can't push them anyway. The donor class is what pushes them. This is why there needs to be a strong call to remove corporate money from electoral politics in this country. There are other countries that have free public elections. We don't have it here. The genocide doesn't happen because there's no weapons coming from the US to go to Israel. You get me? They don't have these contracts with these weapon contractors. They don't belong to the military industrial complex. They don't have to deal with that. Therefore, it doesn't happen. All those kids aren't killed in Gaza. Later on this week, stay tuned for a video about the increase of the homelessness rate in 2024. It has just shot through the roof. And if people don't wake up to what I'm trying to prepare you for, it is only a matter of time where it's not going to be uncommon for you, no matter where you live, to see an increase in homelessness. That is going to continue if people don't wake up. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat It doesn't matter if it's a Republican in the White House. Do people not get that? None of that matters. If the oligarchy maintains control, that will not change. Black wealth is projected to be at $0 in 2050. White people, you're not going to be excluded. Your wealth is going to decline too, unless you're already rich. There are too many people that are homeless in this country. That shouldn't be. There are too many people living in poverty in this country. That should not be. And there is no reason why anyone in this country should not have health care. But the system that we have that is controlled by the oligarchy, by the billionaire class, allows this to happen. You just saw what happened right now with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. Watch the video I uploaded for that. You just saw this. This has all been revealed, what I've been telling people for the past couple of years. These people are not going to look out for the best interests of the working class if you are not a donor. They look out for their self, their buddies, their class, and their interest. So the whole push for let's get more people with H-1B, visas, let's get them. That is just another form of exploiting the workers because they know that they are cheaper labor, they pay them less, and they have a restrictive visa requirement where they can't just quit like that if they want to, or they're sent back home. Everyone should be up in arms that Elon Musk was just walking into Congress making demands. When your politicians that you may or may not have voted for, but if you voted for him, they won't even listen to you. But he walks in and he don't even live in their district and he has their eyes and their ears. You hear what I'm saying? I do believe that something is coming. I don't know what that's going to be, but the story that I just read about the homelessness rate in 2024, the United States, Richard Wolff is right. We are on our way down. And by we, it's those of us that are part of the working class. Elon Musk is going to be fine. The working class won't. So get ready. Because I say it again, with all the protests in the world for Gaza, there is no reason why Palestine should not be free. Not one reason, except for the fact that money controls the government. And I don't know how any of those people can sleep at night. I don't know how Joe Biden sleeps at night. I don't know how Elon Musk sleeps at night. I don't know how Donald Trump sleeps at night. I don't know how any of these people sleep at night because that would really bother me. The videos that I saw, which I did not put in the compilation, but the videos of the children, there's no way for you to look at that and not give a damn. You're bought, you're soulless, and you're greedy. This past year, it was Gaza. Next year, it could be someone else. So don't think it can't be you. We'll end, I think, the clip there. We're just going to do one clip for this, Eric and Corey, and that's the number one story of Gaza. Eric, do you want to come on to do this part? If not, I can just do it. This is what we try to drive home. And this is what we want people to start saying in your conversations with people. Money, corruption, demands solutions, MC/DS. So Eric came up with this, and this is what we got to do. The MCDS playbook for 2025. Again, MC is money and corruption. DS is demands and solutions. MC, always, always, always connect any current issue to big money and corruption. As long as billionaires own our government, things will get worse and worse. So you see what I did there with the Gaza situation? You connect it to the money and you'll understand why. DS, demands and solutions. Don't stop there. The crucial next step is to express clearly and loudly what are our demands, and from the demands will flow solutions. And here are some examples that Eric put here. Our healthcare system sucks because it's about money and not health. Demand the end for profit health insurance and the formation of a full service United States national healthcare system. Uniform officers of the state commit yet another atrocity. Demand that everyone up the chain of command be fired or resign, including, most importantly of all, those in leadership positions. Every uniparty politician in Washington is owned and working for the billionaires. Demand that they either resign or exit the corrupt duopoly and make fixing the big money system their number one priority. And I got to drive this home. All these politicians that you guys are still trying to say, let's just try to push them left. Oh, hell no. Especially the ones that have been there for years. Nancy Pelosi, these people, Pelosi, Schumer, they have had plenty of time to move on issues that they know they could have moved on, and they decided not to because their donors don't want them to. Don't believe me? Friend of the show, Roger Meadows, has attended meetings where Chuck Schumer led the meeting and admitted that, yeah, we could do Medicare for all. They already know. So going into 2025, stop telling people, let's push people left. No. There is no pushy wushy. They're not going to push for you. These people need to resign. That's where we're going, okay? Stop saying we're going to try to push people like Nancy Pelosi, who has been there for God knows how damn long. Nancy need to retire. She need to resign. She need to go back to San Fran and hang out with her refrigerator ice cream. You can go down the list for all of them. Mitch McConnell, stop saying, oh, I might be willing to try to work with him. Hell to the no. He been there long enough. Mitch McConnell need to go back to the hills of Kentucky and resign. These people are not going to be pushed. They need to resign. Step all the way down. That's what needs to happen. All of these old school, we're going to keep things by the book and not try to change any of these parties, people. Those politicians got to go. And if that means that their seat remains vacant, let the damn seat remain vacant. Because I'll tell you, Justice Democrats, they already told you they were out of money. They ain't got nobody else coming up the pipeline. And you see that AIPAC already removed 2 of them from Congress. It's not just people that need to resign on the Democratic Party. Some of these old fogey Republican politicians got to go. You need new energy in there, new energy. That doesn't mean you necessarily have to be young, but if your ass done been there for over a damn near decade, you got to go. And we need term limits in Congress. Because some of y'all done got comfortable. You done been there for decades. You've written so many books. You've done your book tours. You've done your promos, etc. It is time for you to go. Maybe we can start a movement around that. Get these mofos out of office. How about that? Step all the way down. And you know what? That is something we could do in a bipartisan way. Because I know, I'm pretty sure there's damn Republicans who also feel as though they want some of them damn politicians on the Republican side in Congress to step the fuck down too. They need a whole new crew. People got to go. But they're not going to go if you continue to vote for them. They're not. And that's why they're still there. So if that means that you got to vote third party, independent, whatever you want to do, these people got to go. So going into 2025, we're going to make sure we change the way we speak about certain things. And I started that a little bit towards the end of this year, but I had to break myself out of that. I had to break myself out of saying, oh my gosh, they just don't get it. They don't understand. Why are they? No, they do get it. They do understand. They're paid to pretend like they don't get it. And that includes corporate media too. And that is all for me tonight, folks. All for me tonight. Oh, that's a good point. Felix said BRICS exists only because what Sabby says. I mean, it's just this because they realized, they said, we can't work with the West anymore. We can't work with the West. Eric, can you do the chats? I do have to use the restroom pretty quickly. I've had a lot of water. You want to do the super chats, Eric? And then I will head on out of here.
Sure. All right. I am jumping in because sometimes you got to. All right. Let me make sure. Yeah, my sound is good. Let me swap that view. All right. Yeah. And I'll just reiterate what Sabby was saying about what we want to do going into 25. And you know, what I'm kind of proposing is this idea of a demands-based movement. And yeah, if you want to see more about that, you know, check out 11demands.org. And you know, like on there, like Sabby was talking about, you know, what are we asking for? You know, I guess that's, if you take one thing away from all this, is what I'm saying is have clear demands, right? And, you know, the big one that really supersedes everything else is fix the big money in politics and government. And you can see more about that on 11demands.org. Also on the site, there are things about strategy and about the idea of an 11 Demands collective. And I want everyone to just feel like they can play a role, you know, because every one of us can, even if it's just talking to other people about it. And about what needs to be done. And so, you know, I'm hoping 2025 can be the year for that. All right, we got chats built up. Let's see what in the queue. So some of these go back to the previous story. So let's see here. We had, thanks for this one, Dre Harden, for the super chat. He says, they didn't care when Bernie said it was free when he said it, but this time it cost something. And thanks for this one, Eric Gray, saying Luigi brought POTD, propaganda of the deed, back into the mainstream consciousness. You know, next time, you know, we have the Zoom call and hangout, Eric, you should come in and tell us about that. That sounds interesting. And yeah, Kay Hillman said, didn't he get his healthcare needs met? We had new member, Lauren L. Welcome aboard the YouTube membership. And yeah, I saw this one come by where what JB was saying. I avoided going to the doctor because I didn't have enough money to pay copays and deductibles before my kidneys failed. And yeah, I mean, this is a real thing that people avoid medical care, and you know, it costs you. You know, it can cost your health. And thanks, Lauren, for doing gifting Sabby memberships. And thanks for this one, Cheetah, who said it's affected Gen X too. Let's see here. Thanks for this super chat, Dre Harden. Even a Trump voter down south is going broke paying for insulin and asthma meds in Cancer Alley. And they understand that Luigi did it for the people, even when he comes from an upper class background. Yeah, I mean, you know, no matter what you, how you view or put the morals of the thing. I mean, in a practical sense, you know, what happened to that CEO sparked a national conversation, and now it's kind of, you know, it's this opportunity where, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, a real demand-based movement can kind of slide in there. You know, people are ready for something, that's for sure. Thanks for this one, Kevin Wayne, who says Dr. West rocked the stage back then. Yeah, talking about Cornel West, talking at the the Palestinian protests. And, it was an amazing time. It was an amazing thing to be in the middle of those protests in Boston when they were happening. Kind of my dream is, I guess, in a sense, is, my fantasy or whatever it would be to have protests like that, like we had with George Floyd, like the Bernie movement, but under, a movement, under a set of demands that really, that really would change things if they were met. And that's what we need to shoot for. Thanks for this one, Kevin Wayne. You said, surprised World War III looming wasn't closer to the top. Yep, that's probably a point. Nuclear annihilation would certainly be a big story. And thanks for this one, Cheetah. It says, free Palestine. The protest and fight shall continue towards 2025. Never give up and keep up the fight. And thanks, Jay, who says, I wish people had the fire to fight for justice for Black Americans and reparations for Black Americans as they do for Gaza, we third world. And I think that's states, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, Georgia. I mean, I think I hear what you're kind of getting at, Jay, and what I'm proposing is that, we connect the dots, and when you look at the causes for these big issues, it always comes back to this core problem of having this small set of billionaires at the top with all the money, power, and resources calling the shots. And as long as they're doing that, and we don't get together as a 99% and fix that problem, it's going to keep happening. And that is, to me, the key insight of where we need to go. Thanks for this one, Tristan Grapp, who says, oligarchy is a horror. Prayer may not be enough. And we got Cynical, who was a member for 7 months, who said, why does every generation have to keep begging the government, the U.S., to allow us to live, to not harm others? What is this life? That's certainly what we need to fix. And I got a few more up here on the board. Sparky, you said, not that they weren't justified, but the George Floyd protests were partially amplified by the CIA et al. Palestinian protests were pure grassroots. And thanks for the super sticker, Efner. The cute, is that a grasshopper or a bee? That's like a bee grasshopper. What do you think, Sabby? What is that icon?
A bee?
Yeah, I guess, but it looks like a grasshopper too.
Oh,
is it like a bee hopper? Thanks for the super sticker. And Justin B, thanks for the super chat, who says, Dems and Republicans are not going to resign. We've got to replace them. Green Party will be running as many candidates as possible in Congress in 2026. And yeah, I mean, we'll be, big time behind that. And what I hope we can do is unite all these things behind a common concept of, top versus bottom, top 0.1% versus the rest of us. If we can all get on board with that, I think we might get somewhere. I think we got one rock fin. It's just one.
And I think people are starting to see this as well. As we said before, Elon Musk is establishment. Elon Musk is the establishment. He is a billionaire. So he was never going to be on your side. Never going to be your side. Everybody's seeing it now. What is wild? Friends. He is not your friend. Not your friend.
Let's see. Let's get some sizing here. Do you want to read the Roger? You want me to read?
Luigi completely destroyed the narrative that under 30 crowd are not as concerned about healthcare as the older folks. Also, I knew Palestinian protests would be number one. That went global. Yeah. That's right. Okay.
That's not the right format. Let's do that. All right. I'll just jump off and say 2025 is going to be something. See you there.
2025 is going to be live. All right, guys, that is it for me. I will be live again Thursday night. Don't miss that. I'm going to try to have a panel and news stories, but a panel on Thursday about the H-1B visa process and about exploitation. So stay tuned. Hopefully I can put that together. But Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, I'll be back live. Until then, please look forward to these two videos in particular, which is going to be the homelessness increase story for 2024 that just went out. And then also the story about the killing of Robert Brooks in New York. So stay tuned for that. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for me tonight. Have a good night. Keep up the fight, fam. I gotta find my thing. They sing these things. Keep up the fight.